Chapter 376, The Smallness of Heaven and Earth Noon. Tinya Valley. Guwen rode upon the blood prison Great Saint toward the mouth of the valley, with an Xian following close by. This was not the first time Guwen had brought an Xian to Tinya Valley, but every time she came she was very happy, primarily because the three monkey demons of Tinya Valley had a good relationship with her, and she had specially brought along many pastries. From a distance, Luo Hun caught sight of Guwen and a smile spread across his face as he went to greet him. Guwen, His Majesty brought someone back with him, someone who came especially to find you. Guess who it is? Luo Hun arrived beside the blood prison Great Saint and asked with a smile. Guwen already knew of the person's arrival, but since the other party practiced a certain energy-concealing sorcery, he did not want to point it out directly, so he asked with a puzzled look, "Who? Am I familiar with them?" Luo Hun smiled mysteriously and said, "Since you can't guess, let's go have a look." Guwen nodded. With Luo Hun leading the way, they made their way to a courtyard. Before even entering the courtyard, Guwen heard the laughter of Li Xiandao. As soon as the blood prison Great Saint stepped into the courtyard, Guwen's gaze fell on the person beside Li Xiandao. Wuxia Void Crossing Realm, 3rd Layer 469/1800/4200. After many years apart, Wuxia had reached the Void Crossing Realm. Such progress at his age could indeed be considered incredibly swift. The current Wuxia still looked like a monk, but he was not wearing a kasaya. Instead, he donned a brocaded robe that restrained his body, and there was a certain commanding presence about him that the young monk of the past didn't possess. Upon seeing Guwen, Wuxia's face showed excitement. He stood up, somewhat at a loss for what to do. Guwen dismounted and approached the table to salute Li Xiandao, followed by an Xian whose eyes were filled with curiosity. "Senior brother, Wuxia looked at Guwen, suddenly at a loss for words. Guwen looked at him, eyes widening in astonishment as he asked, "You're Wuxia?" Wuxia hurriedly nodded. Just as he was about to say something, Li Xiandao interrupted with a smile, "Let's sit down and talk." He motioned to an Xian with his hand, indicating for her to sit down as well. Luo Hun didn't stay in the courtyard, leading the blood prison Great Saint away to not disturb the four of them. "I really didn't recognize you just now. You've changed so much. How have these years treated you? I heard before that you've achieved miracle after miracle under His Majesty's command?" Guwen asked warmly, easing Wuxia's awkwardness as the master and disciple caught up with each other. Wuxia was originally a spy planted by the Thousand Autumn Pavilion inside the Supreme Sect. The Taoist expansion skill, the precursor to the primordial reincarnation skill, was transmitted to Guwen by him. Centuries had gone by, and with the power of the Taoist expansion skill, Wuxia's maximum lifespan had reached 4,200 years. It seemed that Wuxia's own talent was not lacking, but it was only because he practiced the Taoist expansion skill that it had not been revealed. In the past, the Taitsong continent was so backward that even the Mystic Heart realm was rarely seen. The fact that Wuxia encountered an immortal-seeking Taoist of the Nirvana realm at a young age proved his exceptional chi fortune. An Xian sat obediently to the side, listening attentively to her master and grandmaster catching up, curious about Wuxia. Li Xiandao did not interrupt, listening to their conversation with a smile. Guwen silently reflected on Li Zuando's talent. Li Xiandao now had reached the 5th layer of the Mystic Heart realm, surpassing LV Badian, yet his public cultivation level, like Guwen's, only appeared as that of the nascent soul realm. After a while, Wuxia turned to look at Li Xiandao, who spoke with a smile. "In planning to send him to an immortal mansion for cultivation, Guwen, would you like to go?" Guwen shook his head. "I'd rather not, thank you for the gracious offer, uncle." That so-called immortal mansion was, after all, similar to the factions like the Star Sea congregations. He was not interested in it. Li Xiandao was not surprised. Over the years he had offered many opportunities to Guwen, all of which were rejected. He understood that this young man had no desire to seek immortality. "Senior brother, let's go together, it's a rare opportunity. Now that I've achieved the cultivation level of the Void Crossing realm, I can surely protect you," Wuxia urged. An Xian wanted to laugh upon hearing this. Was the Void Crossing realm really that strong? She did not show it on her face, as Guwen had reminded her many times to control her facial expressions. Guwen laughed. "I really don't want to go, I'm quite comfortable now. Going to the immortal mansion would surely be stressful, and it's not certain that I would undergo a transformation. You go ahead, he'll be here waiting for you to tell me about your experiences in the immortal mansion when you return." Despite Wuxia's continued persuasion, it was to no avail. No matter how much he insisted, Guwen remained unmoved. "If you don't want to go, then don't. It's fine, staying in the Supreme Sect also offers plenty of opportunities, Li Xiandao said, putting an end to Wuxian's urging. Li Xiandao then looked at Guan and asked, Guan, what do you think the Taizong dynasty should do next for its development? Guan asked in surprise, isn't everything fine now? Why do you ask? Li Xiandao shook his head, it only seems fine on the surface. The internal class structure is solidifying. Life may be better than before, but the opportunities for commoners to knock on the doors of the immortal sects have not increased. Guan fell silent. Each year, the number of cultivators in the immortal cultivation world grows, but the vast majority are from families of cultivators. It's highly likely that a farmer's offspring will remain a farmer. Wuxin also fell into deep thought as he served Li Xiandao. He saw even more issues. The current families were able to establish contacts overseas, and through various means such as intermarriage, sworn brotherhood, and exchange of interests, they were quickly growing stronger with unfathomable depths, making it difficult for Li Xiandao to suppress them. Who knows how powerful the entities backing those families could be? I do admire the immortal dynasty. If only all of the Taizong dynasty's citizens could become immortals, that would be wonderful. I wonder if he'll live to see that day, Li Xiandao said cheerfully. He was just being precautious. For now his imperial power was quite stable. Guan continued the conversation. If that day really comes, who knows how long it will take? His tone was filled with emotion. He began to talk with Li Xiandao about the future visions, while Wuxin occasionally interjected, and an Xian listened throughout. Gradually the topic shifted to Li Ya. After discussing Li Ya for a while, Li Xiandao asked, what about Yang Jian? It's been a while since we've seen him. Ling Tian often talks to me about him. I'm not sure where he's gone, but with his talent he probably won't encounter any trouble, Guan said, shaking his head. Wuxin asked curiously, brother, I heard from His Majesty that Yang Jian's talent is no less than in Hao's? Guan smiled and said, I'm not sure about that. They are both stronger than me anyway. You can ask an Xan, she grew up with an Hao. As he spoke, he gestured towards an Xan beside him, which made Wuxin take a new look at her. Could it be that this woman had such a connection? An Xan hurriedly said, I'm not in a position to judge, but my brother once said he looks forward to a battle with Yang Jian. Wuxin sighed, my cultivation speed is considered fast, but compared to those favored by heaven, it's still far behind. I wonder what their cultivation levels are now. Li Xiandao looked at an Xan, then glanced at Guan, contemplative. The four of them chatted for an ancient hour before Guan, accompanied by an Xan, stood up to pick herbs. Once they finished, they said their farewells and left. Wuxin watched Guan's retreating back, his eyes brimming with melancholy. Li Xiandao smiled and asked, what's the matter? Do you feel the relationship has become distant? Wuxin replied, a little, but it's more about regret. With brother's temperament, I'm afraid he won't rise to become an immortal, alas. In years past, Guan had seemed so formidable in his eyes. Now he himself had a cultivation level of the void-crossing realm, while Guan had only reached the nascent soul realm, which left a bitter taste in his mouth. He wished for his brother's cultivation level to always be higher than his so that they could travel the path of immortal cultivation together. How many years could one live in the nascent soul realm? Don't underestimate him, perhaps he's hiding something, Li Xiandao said with a meaningful tone. Wuxin, surprised, asked, hiding? What do you mean? Li Xiandao said slowly, the last time I saw an Xan was 20 years ago. In these 20 years her cultivation has increased very slowly, but my intuition tells me that her progress has been significant. Perhaps they are also practicing your Taoist expansion skill. But the Taoist expansion skill can only lift restrictions once in a lifetime. If brother has reached the nascent soul realm, it must mean he has already lifted his restriction, Wuxin frowned. Li Xiandao did not continue the conversation. He was reminiscing about the golden Dao patterns on Guan's forehead. He had once seen another person with similar Dao patterns whose Dao level was unfathomably deep. Elsewhere, Guan had overheard Li Xiandao and the others' conversation, but he did not mind since his apparent cultivation level was only at the nascent soul realm, and others could speculate as they wished. Time flies swiftly by. 20 years blinked past. The Xiaochuan family was in mourning, and Guan stood on the roof eaves invisible to anyone. He watched Xiaochuan's soul rise from the memorial hall, drifting toward the sky. Today was just the 7th day since Xiaochuan's death. Xiaochuan kept ascending, looking down at the people inside the Xiaochuan residence. His face held no sorrow, instead, it bore a smile. Is this what it feels like to be reincarnated? Xiaochuan pondered silently. Over the past 7 days, his soul had been unable to stray too far from his body, causing him to wander within the Xiaochuan residence the entire time. Now losing control over his soul body, he could feel an invisible force pulling at him from the ether. He wasn't afraid, but rather looked forward to his next life. He gazed far into the distance but did not see Guan, a flash of regret passing through his eyes. Gradually he drifted higher and higher from the ground. Once he could see the entire Taizong continent, he saw countless other souls rising alongside him, a spectacular scene that broadened his horizons. So the Taizong continent is this tiny. I wonder where the supreme sect is located. Xiaochuan muttered to himself. From his current vantage point, the Taizong continent was just a small piece of land in the boundless ocean, insignificant. What, you still wish to visit the supreme sect once? A voice entered Xiaochuan's ear. Xiaochuan's eyes widened as he instinctively turned to look, his expression turning to astonishment. There was Guan, appearing beside him and ascending alongside. Brother, you, Xiaochuan started in shock, unable to complete his sentence. Guan turned to him and asked, now, do you have any regrets about not striving harder in cultivation before? After hearing this, Xiaochuan calmed down and smiled. Regrets? Seeing this scene sooner has only shown me how minute I really am. He looked at Guan, hesitated for a moment and then asked, Brother, what is your relationship with Sword Venerable Fudao? Could it be that you are Sword Venerable Fudao? In Xiaochuan's eyes, Guan seemed so mystical at that moment, with golden Dao patterns on his forehead flickering like flames and the immortal king crown shining peculiarly, making Guan look akin to an immortal lord descending. Chapter 377, Promise of the Next Life. Facing Xiaochuan's questioning, Guan counter-questioned, is this matter very important to you? Xiaochuan caught the implied meaning in Guan's words and lamented, yes, it's no longer important. In fact, 300 years ago I felt my life was drawing close to its end. Over the years, I have often fallen into an indescribable state of sudden enlightenment. It must have been you, elder brother, secretly helping me. Thank you, elder brother. He looked at Guan, his expression solemn. Guan's mouth twitched upwards as he asked, just verbal thanks? Xiaochuan replied helplessly, that's all I can do. What else could I do for you now? If elder brother needs my soul, just take it. Guan glanced at him and said dryly, making it sound like elder brother is some demon cultivator. Wasn't Sword Venerable Fudao initially considered a demon cultivator? Coincidentally, I do have a soul device here. I could use you as the main soul, condemning you to never transcend. Sure, I would love that. Although Xiaochuan still looked elderly, his soul body was spirited, as if he had returned to his younger days. The two bickered in this way as they drew closer to the reincarnation vortex. The reason Xiaochuan could see Guan was because Guan had utilized the power of cause and effect. Even a free immortal could not see Guan if they were here. After a long time, Xiaochuan looked up at the imposing reincarnation vortex and curiously asked, does entering there mean I will be reincarnated? Yes, that's correct. I can only escort you here, Guan replied softly, also looking up. Xiaochuan turned to Guan and said, elder brother, go back now. I'm already satisfied that you could escort me here. Guan gazed at him and with a smile said, well, meet in the next life. The next life. Xiaochuan blinked his eyes. He didn't question Guan's words but internally marveled, how profound must Sword Venerable Fudao's Tao be to see through reincarnation? After pondering for a moment he said, if I remain mediocre in my next life, elder brother, don't find me. Let me lead an ordinary life. However, if one day I possess exceptional cultivation talents, then come find me and I'll still manage Medicine Valley for you. Guan smiled and nodded, then raised his right hand and pointed 2 fingers toward Xiaochuan. Xiaochuan was instantly immobilized, his eyes losing their sparkle. Guan used his own power of cause and effect to seal Xiaochuan's memories, to prevent them from being erased by reincarnation, then left a Destruction Dao seal within his soul body. The Destruction Dao seal would leave an eternal mark, making it easier for Guan to find Xiaochuan's reincarnated body later. Having done all this, Guan paused and watched as Xiaochuan headed towards the reincarnation vortex. He also had a basic understanding of the reincarnation rules. Long Zhan's heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma touched upon these rules, but it mainly relied on establishing connections through cause and effect with past lives. He still couldn't fathom the essence of reincarnation. In the divine origin great heaven and earth, there also wasn't a complete order of reincarnation. After death, a soul would ascend and fly to outer heaven, being devoured by reincarnation rules at a certain height, disappearing without a trace. How one naturally reincarnated was unknown to anyone and was difficult to trace. However, great beings of fortune would cause unusual phenomena in heaven and earth when reincarnated. After Xiaochuan had disappeared into the reincarnation vortex, Guan finally returned to the Third Medicine Valley. Several days later, near midday, as Guan was reading a book inside his house, an Xang came to find him. "Master, Uncle Xiaochuan has passed away. He didn't want to trouble you, so he had his descendants deliver this letter later." An Xang handed over a letter to Guan while carefully observing his expression. In front of an Xang, Guan did not need to pretend. He took the letter directly and opened it to read. The content of the letter wasn't much different from what Xiaochuan had said before he entered reincarnation, but after reading it, Guan still felt somewhat melancholic. He had tried his best to help Xiaochuan, but unfortunately, Xiaochuan did not possess the fighting spirit like Yilan, Zhenqin, or an Xan. To put it accurately, Xiaochuan's talents were inferior and no different from most ordinary people, which was why it was hard for him to maintain his drive. Guan, however, wasn't too saddened. After learning about the existence of reincarnation tribulation, his aversion to reincarnation wasn't as strong. When cultivators reached the free immortal realm, they ultimately had to face reincarnation. Not everyone could break through by evolving their lifespan like Guan, and he couldn't use his lifespan to help others skip their reincarnation tribulation. He was curious about reincarnation tribulation, wondering if it only counted after reaching the free immortal realm or if previous reincarnations counted as well. It was said that reincarnation tribulation had no pattern. Reincarnation might not necessarily occur in the current era or world, which was why it was hard to trace Shengxin's whereabouts. Guan put the letter down and looked at an Xan asking, "Is there anything else?" An Xan inquired, "Master, are you doing all right?" Guan smiled and said, "What, do I really need to drown my sorrows in alcohol? Hurry back to your cultivation. I don't want to receive your last letter." Hearing this, an Xan stuck out her tongue and immediately bowed to take her leave. Guan thought for a moment, stood up, and walked over to a bookshelf to take down a brocade box, placing Xiaochuan's last letter inside it. Xiaochuan's death hadn't affected Guan's life, even though his descendants were still in the Third Medicine Valley. His descendants weren't too saddened. After all, there was a vast generational gap. As autumn gave way to winter, the temperature between heaven and earth began to drop. On this day, Guan had finished picking the most recently matured medicinal herbs in the Third Medicine Valley. He was in good spirits. Nowadays his average annual lifespan income exceeded 3,500,000 years. He wasn't in a hurry to unlock the feature associated with a 10 billion year lifespan. He wouldn't wait anymore if his lifespan was sufficient for a breakthrough later. After all, the figure of 10 billion was really massive. He surely couldn't start stealing medicinal herbs again, could he? Returning under the attic, Guan gave a few instructions to his disciple before heading towards the chess area. More and more people were taking up chess, and as the birthplace of chess and Go, the Third Medicine Valley naturally attracted many enthusiasts. Playing chess in the Third Medicine Valley always felt special for cultivators. At this moment, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord was demolishing opponents left and right. Guan approached from the back of the crowd and watched from a distance. His attention was drawn to a man nearby. The man, who had only reached the nascent soul realm, wore a blue Taoist robe and was not particularly handsome. Zhang Shi, nascent soul realm level 3681/1100/1800. His maximum lifespan wasn't high, yet for some reason, Guan was inexplicably drawn to him from the first glance. Zhang Shi felt Guan's gaze and turned his head, nodding slightly. Guan approached and asked with a smile, "Taoist friend, you seem unfamiliar, is this your first time here?" Zhang Shi answered, "I just arrived at Supreme Sect a few days ago. I came specifically for Go. This trip was worthwhile, the level of skill here is very high." While speaking, he turned his head to look forward fervently and said, "I estimate I only have a 30% chance of winning against this senior." His gaze was fixed on Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, and his words irritated Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord turned back to look at Zhang Shi and said, 30%? You cheeky boy, so arrogant. Take the next game, I'll make sure you don't leave a single piece on the board. Faced with the challenge from Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, Zhang Shi was not intimidated but instead showed an eager expression. Guan watched Zhang Shi fervently, seemingly deep in thought, his eyes revealing a hint of fascination. Chapter 378. The Talent of a Heavenly Pride. Guan sensed an extraordinary reincarnation aura emanating from Zhang Shi. He speculated that Zhang Shi had reincarnated and wasn't just any ordinary reincarnation but bore some similarity to Ji Xiaoyu. Could it be that Zhang Shi was a great power currently undergoing a reincarnation tribulation? Guan pondered this in his mind but did not continuously stare at Zhang Shi. After a while, the nine-fingered Divine Lord successfully defeated his opponent and immediately waved to Zhang Shi. This fellow actually claimed to have a 30% chance of winning against him. To him, this was an outright provocation. A nascent soul realm cultivator daring to fantasize about winning against him? Did he think he was Guan? Under the encouragement of a group of cultivators, Zhang Shi walked to the chess table, sat down, and started to play chess with the nine-fingered Divine Lord, who allowed him the first move. A fierce battle thus began. Guan watched for a while before moving to the side to find others to play chess with. Whether Zhang Shi could win against the nine-fingered Divine Lord or not, Guan didn't care. He just wanted to relax for a while. Half an hour later, Guan had won 2 consecutive games of chess and stood up to leave. Zhang Shi and the nine-fingered Divine Lord were still playing. At that moment, Zhang Shi furrowed his eyebrows, hesitating over his moves, while the nine-fingered Divine Lord wore a smug smile, mockingly criticizing his slow play, accusing him of trying to wear out his opponent. Guan smiled and walked toward the distant mystic pure tree. The white spirit rat was napping under the tree, while an Xan was practicing chi absorption cultivation. This tree had become their fixed cultivation spot, which other disciples couldn't enjoy unless they performed exceptionally well. Approximately 30 minutes passed. Zhang Shi put down his chess piece and said, "I lost." The nine-fingered Divine Lord, smiling smugly, said, "To beat me, you'd need another 100,000 years." Zhang Shi stood up, bowed to him and then took his leave. Losing interest, the nine-fingered Divine Lord stood up, making room for others. The audience wasn't too shocked. After all, the nine-fingered Divine Lord was the second-best chess player in the Medicine Valley, second only to the founder. Guan. Zhang Shi began wandering around the valley, moving along the wooden railing, admiring the orderly, splendid medicine gardens. A figure brushed past him, causing a slight change in his expression. He turned his head to look. Long Qing was walking briskly toward Xin Xinzi, not noticing him. "This aura, the Dragon Clan," Zhang Shi murmured softly, though his voice was quite faint. Guan, who was nearby playing with the white spirit rat, heard it. Guan kept his composure, but his curiosity about Zhang Shi's true identity grew. Zhang Shi watched Long Qing leave. He did not linger for too long but chose to continue his stroll. Gradually he passed by the venerable pavilion of Guan. The door opened and a figure suddenly blocked his path, Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Seeing the suddenly appearing Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, Zhang Shi was not frightened but instead studied him. With a cold expression on his face and a shift in his divine thought, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor formed a barrier around them, ensuring no one but Guan could hear their conversation. "Who are you?" the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor asked sternly. Smiling, Zhang Shi responded, "Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, since you are here, I presume one of the Yin-Yang 4 Emperors, the Reincarnation Path Emperor, has also reincarnated here?" As soon as these words were spoken, a murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Zhang Shi continued, "There's no need to be tense. The Reincarnation Path Emperor's undergoing of the Reincarnation Tribulation is already public knowledge, and the Holy Court will not intervene." Hearing this, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's expression softened. He inhaled deeply and asked, "May I know the elder's name?" Shaking his head, Zhang Shi replied, "I will not tell you my background to avoid bringing trouble to you and the Reincarnation Path Emperor. Today I came here merely for chess." The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor fell silent for a moment, then stepped aside, no longer blocking Zhang Shi. Zhang Shi stepped forward, walking past him. "The chief fortune of this Medicine Valley is on the verge of erupting. Tell the Reincarnation Path Emperor, since he has entered the Reincarnation Tribulation, not to cling to the mortal dust, as the biggest taboo in the Reincarnation Tribulation is trying to be a savior." Leaving these words behind, Zhang Shi walked away without turning back. Guan, hearing this, reduced his interest in Zhang Shi by a notch. Zhang Shi actually mistook Ji Xiaoyu for Sword Venerable Fudao. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor didn't argue for Ji Xiaoyu and quickly disappeared from the spot. In the time that followed, Zhang Shi toured the Third Medicine Valley and then flew toward the Outer Gate City. Seeing that Zhang Shi had no intention of causing trouble, Guan stopped paying attention to him. Most days in the Third Medicine Valley were uneventful. Occasionally encountering a being of extraordinary origin was just a minor episode in Guan's life. 12 years later. Boom. A figure descended from the sky, crashing into the forest, creating a terrifying wind that uprooted several trees, sending grass and debris flying. Dressed in white, an Xan landed on a tree trunk. She held a treasure sword, looking up with furrowed brows, her hand trembling as she gripped the sword. In the distance, the blood prison great saint crawled on the cliff, enduring the fierce wind, his gaze fixed on a distant battle. Guan stood in the air, holding the Qinghong sword, looking down at an Xen with a smile. Is this all you've got? On hearing this, a cold light flashed in Nzin's eyes. She took a step forth, appearing behind Guan like a blink, her treasure sword cleaving horizontally, the strong sword intent materializing tangibly. Guan drew his sword with a backhanded grip, blocking Nzin's sword intent and following the blade's direction, scattering the distant sea of clouds. Seeing that an Xian from the 9th level of the divinity transformation realm could manifest such sword intent, Guan was secretly pleased. The girl had cultivated diligently and it was not in vain. Just her sword intent alone was comparable to the void-crossing realm. Combined with her stepping path of age's step, her strength far surpassed the divinity transformation realm and she was starting to show the makings of a prodigy. When an Xan found that her sword intent couldn't shake Guan, she stepped again and appeared above the forest several kilometers away, her treasure sword no longer in hand. Her eyes narrowed and she pointed at Guan with her right hand's finger, turned into a sword. Boom! A dominant, vast sword intent descended from the sky. Guan looked up and saw a beam of light that seemed to slash down from outer heaven. The beam erupted with sword chi, forming a brilliant sword shadow 100 meters long. It was a magnificent sight. Guan's lips curved up, the girl had finally mastered it. His repeated preachings over the years were not in vain. The brilliant sword shadow fell with incredible speed, engulfing Guan's figure and then crashing into the mountains and rivers. The ground shook, clouds of dust rose rapidly, and fierce winds ravaged everything in all directions. It was like the apocalypse, shaking the entire vast island. Blood Prison Great Saint watched, his heart secretly startled. He too recognized that Nzin's sword intent had surpassed the divinity transformation realm. The master had really raised this girl well. In that moment, Blood Prison Great Saint became even more convinced that the ancient treasure body possessed by Yang Jian was bestowed by his master. An Xen gasped for breath, the winds tossing her hair. She kept her gaze fixed ahead, not believing her swordsmanship could hurt her mentor. She was on the alert for her mentor's sudden reappearance. Snap! Suddenly, a hand landed on Nzin's shoulder, making her heart leap and her formidable presence scatter. Guan withdrew his hand and smiled. Not bad, today's performance finally satisfied me. You are worthy to chase after Hauer and Jenner. An Xan turned her head and saw her mentor's smiling face. Suppressing her palpitations, she forced a smile and said, "It's all thanks to your excellent teaching, mentor. They never received such devoted guidance from you." She suddenly remembered a legend from the Supreme Sect. It was said that before Sword Venerable Fudao killed someone, he liked to pat their shoulder. She had thought it a mere rumor before, but now it seemed otherwise. Too terrifying. Just being patted like that made her feel suffocated. The terror of feeling her soul scatter was beyond comparison. Guan sheathed the Qinghong sword and turned to an Xen, saying, "You lack a suitable sword, but I will not help you find one. Use your sword intent to temper your own sword." An Xen wiped the sweat from her forehead and asked, "Sword intent can also temper a sword?" "Of course. When you become powerful enough, your sword can become an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure." Immortal Path Supreme Treasure? And Zin's eyes lit up, her breathing became hurried. With the Taitsong continent gradually catching up to the immortal cultivation world, the strength of Immortal Path Supreme Treasures sank deep into people's hearts. Such treasures were considered church treasures even overseas, and Li Ya's divine exotic city possessed only a pseudo-Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Thinking about one day tempering her own Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, an Xan felt extremely excited. What level of Tao would she have then? She began to look forward to that day. What would Hao's reaction be when he saw her then? "Let's go, it's time to head home." Guan flew toward Blood Prison Great Saint, and an Xan hurriedly followed. "Mentor, you know so much about Immortal Path Supreme Treasures, you couldn't be the legendary Immortal King, could you? At least you're at the same realm as the Immortal King. I guess you are at least at the 7th layer of Immortal Tao. No, the 8th? An Xian excitedly asked. The existence of the 9 heavens of Immortal Path had also been known in the continent's immortal cultivation world. She had heard that the most powerful individuals had only reached the 4th layer of Immortal Tao. She estimated her mentor's cultivation level as 7th layer, which was already a high estimate. Guan laughed, "Not that impressive, I am just a loose immortal." "I understand, a loose immortal without a fixed power, right?" An Xian giggled. The Holy Court had named Sword Venerable Fudao as the Holy Sword, Mortal World Peak named the mentor as Peak Master. The Supreme Sect even reserved a position in the Venerable Pavilion for the mentor, and there was also a mortal-seeking island overseas. She guessed her mentor had even more backgrounds that hadn't been revealed. Guan smiled and remained silent, not bothering to explain. In Enzin's eyes, 9 heavens of Immortal Path was the limit of Immortal Path. How could he, someone who had surpassed the 9 heavens of Immortal Path, explain that to her? Summer insects cannot speak of ice. 30 minutes later, Guan rode on Blood Prison Great Saint and returned to 3rd Medicine Valley, with an XN following close behind. Just arrived, Guan sensed a familiar presence. It had been a long time since he had seen this person. Zhou Tongyu. Guan had once written him into Supreme Immortal Venerable as the second protagonist. This man was also one of the foremost geniuses of the Taizong dynasty. After suppressing his power level and losing to Guan, they had formed a friendship. The last time Zhou Tongyu came hoping to defeat Guan, he instead lost to Yang Jian. After losing to Yang Jian at the subsequent Golden List conference, he lost to Wu Ju, helping Wu Ju thoroughly embark on the path of a genius. Since then Guan hadn't seen him. Centuries had passed. Back then, Guan was just at the carefree primordial immortal realm. Time truly flies. Guan had not yet seen Zhou Tongyu, but he was already feeling nostalgic. He dismounted and took an Xian to find Zhou Tongyu. Zhou Tongyu was watching people play chess, not noticing Guan's approach. Chapter 379 Cultivation in the Tao Realm, Zhou Tongyu Unification Realm Level 1534/3000/3100. He had actually reached the Unification Realm. It seems he had had some significant opportunities these past years. Unfortunately, his maximum lifespan has not improved. Guan thought to himself as he looked at Zhou Tongji's lifespan. Although Zhou Tongji's maximum lifespan had not improved, if he could reach the Nirvana realm before the age of 3100, he could achieve Nirvana and prolong his life. Guan made his way to Zhou Tongji's side and raised his hand to pat his shoulder, only to be grasped by his right hand. Zhou Tongyu tilted his head to look at Guan, then his stern face showed a look of surprise. He turned around, released Guan's hand and looked him over carefully. Guan thought to himself that allowing Zhou Tongyu to catch his hand was to compensate for his regret, knowing that there were few who could interrupt Sword Venerable Fudao's shoulder-patting motion. "Brother Gu, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. You look much better than before," Zhou Tongyu said joyfully. Guan smiled and nodded. "Indeed, it's been a long time. Shall we find a place to drink?" "Sure." Guan, hearing his agreement, raised his hand to signal him to walk in a different direction. An Xian had met Zhou Tongyu and had also heard about his loss to Yang Jian. She could feel that Zhou Tongji's aura was very strong. If she wanted to surpass Yang Jian, she would have to defeat Zhou Tongyu first. Zhou Tongyu, unaware of what the woman behind him was thinking, had not come to find Guan for the sake of a challenge. He was now over 500 years old, not as petty or stubborn as before, his vision was higher and he was now pursuing something higher. They sat down in a courtyard and an Xian started to arrange the food and drinks. Guan and Zhou Tongyu made small talk, each speaking about their own general situation over the past years. After chatting for quite a while, the two laughed and raised their glasses asking, "Where is Yang Jian? Why don't we see him around? I heard he's been gone for a long time." Guan replied, "When children grow up they must spread their wings and fly. This Medicine Valley of mine can't keep him here." After Yang Jian there were several servant disciples in the 3rd Medicine Valley who had a maximum lifespan of more than 4,000 years, but Guan did not take on a disciple specially. Instead, he let those disciples with hidden talent go with the flow of the Medicine Valley. Within the 3rd Medicine Valley, as long as one performed well, they would inevitably establish their foundation, especially those disciples whose talent had not been unearthed who could benefit even more. Guan was worried about taking on disciples who were reincarnations of great powers or had great fortune of energy movement, which was too troublesome, so he did not take in any more disciples, focusing instead on developing an Xian. That's right, such a genius like him must have a more vast world awaiting his explorations. What about Yi Yan, has he ever come back? Zhou Tongyu nodded in agreement. He had become acquainted with Guan because Yi Yan practiced the spear, attracting him, and he always remembered Yi Yan. Guan paused for a moment and said, "He has already passed away." Zhou Tongyu was stunned. He did not comfort Guan but poured him a drink, and after clinking their bowls together, they both drained their drinks in one gulp. In the blink of an eye, we are both over 500 years old. Looking back, so many old friends have gone to the netherworld, and how much further can you and I walk on this immortal cultivation path? Zhou Tongyu expressed his heartfelt feelings. Over the years he had experienced a lot, and he had come to find Guan because his old friends were few. Guan smiled and said, "With Brother Zhou's talent and capabilities, you will surely enter the immortal path realm and have an immeasurable future." Why such sentimentality? After listening to this, Zhou Tongyu shook his head and laughed. The two continued to drink. An XN, seeing that there was nothing concerning her, sensibly left. It was not until the evening that Zhou Tongyu finally bid farewell and left. Guan watched his receding figure, feeling a slight regret in his heart. Why not have a contest? Guan was still thinking about letting an XN defeat Zhou Tongyu. That would certainly be interesting. But he had calculated that Zhou Tongyu was going to challenge Wuju next and it would attract a lot of attention, then he could go and enjoy the spectacle. In the Immortal Dynasty, within a bright hall where clouds and mist surged, the ancient immortal emperor sat on the imperial throne, overlooking everyone in the hall with an Hao among them. And Hao was seeing the lord of the Immortal Dynasty for the first time, and the regal bearing of the other left him inwardly stunned. How high could this person's Tao level be? And Hao felt invincible just by glancing at him. Without exaggeration, this person definitely had the strongest aura he had ever seen, even better than his masters. He was truly the top of the great heavenly spirit land. The other people in the hall looked at the ancient immortal emperor with fervent expressions, as if they could not wait to kneel and worship. The ancient immortal emperor slowly spoke, "I have summoned you today and you should understand why. Due to the chaos of the heavenly demons, the Immortal Dynasty has discussed with the Holy Court. No matter how we fight, we must not waste the overall power of the great heavenly spirit land, so we have organized this conference, allowing cultivators of both sides in each realm to have combat, and your victories or losses are related to the future development of the Immortal Dynasty." Everyone's breathing hastened. They had known about this matter before coming. This conference was not only about the prosperity of the Immortal Dynasty but also a great opportunity for themselves. And Hao's eyes sparkled and his fists tightened. Confident in a contest of the same realm, he was determined not to lose. The ancient immortal emperor was very pleased with the expressions of everyone in the hall. He saw their confidence. The top 3 in each realm can enter the Holy Court's Tao realm for cultivation, and the first place will even obtain an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure that is unaffected by Chi Fortune. The ancient immortal emperor began to talk about the rewards for the conference, exciting everyone present. Having the ancient immortal emperor announce the rewards publicly dispelled the last of their doubts. They had to give it their all. Instead of the rewards, and Hao looked forward to having a sufficiently strong opponent. And Hao didn't need any supreme treasures. When his realm was high enough, he could dominate the world barehanded. The stronger his opponents, the happier he was. What he pursued was fame. He wanted to make a name for himself in the world. He wanted to make everyone in the Supreme Sect proud of him. Having reached this point, he felt that he was already capable of representing the Supreme Sect, even the entire Taizong continent. He wanted those who had lost to him to take pride in their defeat. Controlling the world's holy court, I hope you won't disappoint me. And Hao thought to himself, ignoring the latter part of what the ancient immortal emperor had said, not listening attentively. After a while, the crowd dispersed, and Hao followed them out of the grand hall. Outside the hall was a spectacular sight above the sea of clouds. Just as Hao was about to fly away, a voice called out to him, "And Hao, the geniuses of the Holy Court are very strong. I've heard that there's an unprecedented talent in the Mystic Heart realm, hailed as having talents surpassing that of the Holy God. Take this time to cultivate with me." And Hao turned to look. The speaker was a white-dressed woman as beautiful as a fairy, with a dignified posture, and her eyes looking towards him were like autumn waters, bright and moving. And Hao frowned and said, "Thank you for your kindness, but there's no need." Having said this, he turned and left. The woman in white stood there, stunned, seemingly not expecting such a decisive rejection from Hao. Whispers from the surrounding immortal spirits arose, curious about Hao's background, to dare to refuse a fairy's request. In the Immortal Dynasty, those who could be called fairies not only had to have a background but also a strong cultivation level. And Hao had not even reached the Nirvana realm, which was worse than the lowest ranks of the Immortal Dynasty. Some attitude, move forward 200 years and with such cultivation level, he wouldn't even qualify to step into the Immortal Dynasty, someone muttered, earning the agreement of those around. The woman in white said nothing and turned to leave alone, completely indifferent to the gazes of others. On his way to the third Medicine Valley, Guan rode the blood prison Great Saint, with an Xan following on the right, excitedly recounting the recent battle between Zhou Tongyu and Wu Ju. That Zhou Tongyu is incredible, his evil-suppressing golden body could actually withstand Wu Ju's fist technique. I thought he had no chance against Wu Ju. Master, is the evil-suppressing golden body considered an ancient treasure body? How could Yang Jian defeat Zhou Tongyu of the same realm? You aren't deceiving me, are you? Listening to Nzin's words, Guan also had many feelings. Zhou Tongyu had won, and he won very dominantly, avenging the shame of his defeat to Wu Ju many years ago. Now it was Wu Ju's turn to taste the fall from the peak of the clouds. Guan did not go to comfort Wu Ju, since the elder of the sect had taken him away to heal after the battle, and he had returned to the third Medicine Valley after watching the fight. The outcome of a single battle doesn't prove anything. If you don't work hard, you will eventually be surpassed by someone you've defeated. Right now, you have an advantage that others aren't aware of. You know the true cultivation level of no one else while you can find out theirs, Guan said, seizing the moment to teach an Xan. An Xan nodded and replied, Master, don't worry, I definitely won't become arrogant and complacent. Actually, the evil-suppressing golden body has its shortcomings too. There is a spot at the base of the neck. If it is struck hard, all the chi energy will be dislodged. Guan began to explain the techniques of the recent combat, and an Xan listened attentively. Knowing more was always good. If she ever encountered an enemy with the evil-suppressing golden body in the future, it could come in handy. The blood prison Great Saint was also listening seriously, more worried than Nzin's excitement. These guys were growing so fast. The strength exhibited by Zhou Tongyu as well as Wu Ju was surprising. Deserving to be the geniuses of the great heavenly spirit land. The blood prison Great Saint was even more looking forward to the coming of the millennium. Guan had said that he would personally teach him how to cultivate at that time. What he needed to do now was to diligently cultivate the innate reincarnation skill, accumulate his cultivation and build up momentum. Although he was a mount, Guan had not treated him harshly. He received just as many elixirs as an Xan. After returning to the third Medicine Valley, Guan went upstairs alone. Someone was already waiting in the room. Shenzhen. Seeing Shenzhen sitting in his spot, Guan closed the door and asked, What paintings are you going to show me this time? He could feel that the atmosphere downstairs had once again become unnatural. Although the change was very subtle, it did not escape his senses. Shenzhen put down the supreme secret records in her hand and said, I have comprehended a secret technique that can help improve one's talent. Would you like to learn it? Guan walked over to the table, took back his own copy of the supreme secret records and then asked, What secret technique? Is it that powerful? Shenzhen spoke mysteriously, It's really powerful. I've already practiced it and it truly works. After training with this secret technique, I'm finding that practicing other skills yields twice the result with half the effort. Guan couldn't help but cast a lifespan detection on her. Shenzhen Void Crossing Realm Level 1543/2200/7200, good lord, her maximum lifespan had increased to 7,200 years. Guan was surprised. This girl really could gain enlightenment from music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. And her cultivation level was also growing fast. Chapter 380 Disaster. Judging by Shenzhen's limit lifespan increase, it couldn't be aimed at 9,999 years, could it? As a veteran actor, Guan's face also involuntarily revealed a strange expression at this moment. He lectured Yi Lan, Zhenqin, and an Xan, putting in much effort, yet it paled in comparison to Shenzhen's limit lifespan increase. It didn't make sense. Could there really be existences favored by the heavenly Tao in this world? Wu Ju was one and so was Shenzhen. Both didn't need the help of others and their limit lifespans increased repeatedly on their own. Wait a minute. Guan suddenly realized something and spoke, Is that so? Then relay it to me. Shenzhen promptly narrated the secret technique she comprehended, and Guan listened attentively. After a period equivalent to 30 minutes, Shenzhen finished her narration and then looked at Guan with pride, awaiting his astonishment. Guan frowned and said, I don't understand, it feels profound. Is it chi cultivation first or cultivating acupoints? Though he said this, in fact he had already seen through this secret technique. This secret technique bore some resemblance to the primordial reincarnation skill. Both touched upon the reincarnation technique. However, for lower realm beings, the reincarnation technique was extremely complex and hard to comprehend. With Guan's perspective, even letting top-tier geniuses cultivate this technique, it would be difficult for them to succeed in a short amount of time. He inferred that Xinjin first practiced this secret technique 7 years ago. Mastered it in just 7 years? Something was off unless she already knew it from before. Guan combined this with the changes in Xinjin's aura, and his speculation grew ever firmer. Previously such beings were utterly inconspicuous, and now how could multiple appear? Guan thought for a moment. If he were merely a Taoist hidden immortal, it would be hard to see through reincarnation tribulation unless someone like Ji Xiaoyu, bearing an innate Taoist talisman and continuously awakening memories, made her reincarnation aura increasingly evident. Currently, it seemed Xinjin hadn't awakened any memories, she could only comprehend the cultivation technique. Looking across the world, there were very few beings immersed in reincarnation tribulation. Why did two appear by his side? Excluding Yang Jian as his cultivation level wasn't sufficient, and adding the previously passing Zhang Shi, Guan always felt there was an unseen mighty hand scheming against him. It couldn't just be a coincidence. You don't understand this? You're really dumb. Xinjin retorted with a glare, clearly displeased. It wasn't the response she wanted. Guan indignantly said, "Who could understand this? Maybe I should have Ji Xiaoyu come and listen?" As soon as Xinjin heard this, she hastily rejected, "That won't do. I am only imparting this secret technique to you. You must not teach it to anyone else." "Why?" "There's no why. I'm teaching you because we have a good relationship. I don't care for anyone else. Did you hear me? If you spread it around, I will definitely trouble you." Xinjin raised her fist, threatening him. Guan could only agree, then with a sigh said, "If this secret technique is true, then you are indeed amazing, always enlightening the path. Could you be an immortal reincarnated?" He deliberately pointed this out, wanting to see Ji Xiaoyu's reaction downstairs. Xinjin bragged with a smile, "I've said before that I am definitely the protagonist. The possibility that I am an immortal reincarnated cannot be ruled out. If you want to become immortal in the future, you'll need to cling to my coattails." Guan raised an eyebrow and asked, "Really let me cling?" No sooner had he asked the question than he regretted it, as the aura from down below underwent a more pronounced change. Xinjin lifted her right leg, placed it on the table, and slid her hand along it from the back of her foot to her thigh. Though clothed in long pants, the action was suggestive enough, and she even provocatively looked at Guan. For the first time, Guan noticed Xinjin's legs were really long. No wonder the women in the Supreme Secret records were all long-legged beauties. "Come on, it's not like you haven't clung before." Xinjin spoke coyly. Guan's fur bristled upon hearing this, and he quickly retorted, "Nonsense, when have I ever clung to your thighs? You deny it? Be bold enough to own up to your actions. It should have been about 400 years ago when you visited my cave and clung to me with all that mushy talk. Thinking about it now, it's downright embarrassing." Xinjin said with feigned annoyance, causing Guan to feel the urge to hit someone. 400 years ago, as if calculating Ji Xiaoyu's age? He could be sure that Xinjin had said this for the benefit of Ji Xiaoyu downstairs, as the event she mentioned had never occurred. "Oh really? Then how about we do it again now?" Guan retorted with a humph. He stood up and walked towards Xinjin. Xinjin looked at him provocatively, and just as he really reached out to touch her leg, she quickly drew back her leg and said, "Forget it, let's talk about serious matters." "No, you've uttered the words, you must follow through." Seeing that Guan was indeed about to pounce, Xinjin quickly said, all right, I was only joking. You're so serious, can't take a tease. Afraid that someone downstairs will hear? Wait a minute, are you worried about the person below? I almost forgot I was talking nonsense. Our past interactions were nothing but pure." Listening to her insinuating remarks, Guan was about to pat her on the shoulder. Xinjin continued, "Really, I apologize, I was just joking earlier. Don't be mad at me. I was just testing to see if the person below would eavesdrop. I won't make such jokes in the future." Looking at her smile, Guan guessed she had also sensed Ji Xiaoyu's change of energy. In recent years, Ji Xiaoyu had achieved a breakthrough to the unification realm in the Supreme Sex Tribulation Crossing field, but Xinjin had only the first level of the Void Crossing Realm cultivation level. How could she have noticed Ji Xiaoyu's energy change? Guan felt more and more that something was off about Xinjin. He would have to be careful in the future not to show too much in front of her. She wouldn't eavesdrop, and besides, there are restrictions inside the room, Guan replied, sitting back down at the table and shaking his head. You seem to trust her a lot. Nonsense, I watched her grow up. She is destined to become a powerful figure renowned across the world, not some small-minded girl caught up in her emotions. You should learn from her and stop reading those indecent books all day, won't you? Indecent? I wrote a new volume of the Supreme Secret Records especially for you, and this is how you repay me. You've broken my heart. I won't give it to you now. Goodbye. Shenzhen stood up, flicked her sleeve and walked away. Guan stood up to stop her and asked, "For real?" Shenzhen turned away, pretending to be angry. "All right, I was just joking with you." "I apologize," Guan sighed. This woman really had her ways, had me apologizing and then turns it right back around. Guan could deduce that her new book was just made up, but he would have preferred to see the original. Flipping through the real pages provides such a sense of experience. Shenzhen gave a triumphant smile, pulled a book from her sleeve, and tossed it into Guan's arms before she continued on her way. This creature doesn't close the door when she leaves? How impolite. Holding the latest volume of the Supreme Secret Records, Guan cursed in his mind and then waved his sleeve to close the door. He returned to his seat, placing the book on the table with all solemnity. That the Taoist hidden immortal of his stature should be reading such a book was fortunate that no one knew of his realm. Guan thought himself lucky. It wasn't that he was vulgar. He was cultivating. This was tempering the heart. Reading extensively prevents one from being tied down by women and losing their Taoist heart. After mentally preparing himself, Guan began to flip through the book. Meanwhile, downstairs, Ji Xiaoyu could not contain her curiosity and used her divine sense to peek at Guan's book, immediately blushing and filled with indignation. This guy? Never mind, I won't bring him along for cultivation, lest he truly becomes a menace someday. Ji Xiaoyu thought to herself and strived to cast aside her distractions, returning to her cultivation. Chapter 381, Variables, Hidden Spirit Palace. Ever since Shenzhen had left, every time Guan saw Ji Xiaoyu she would ignore him, feigning ignorance. In the days that followed, rumors began to spread in Medicine Valley, suggesting that there was a falling out between the Master and Elder Ji. This led an XN to inevitably inquire about this matter when she accompanied Guan to Mortal World Peak. "Don't gossip, I haven't had any conflict with her." Guan gave an XN a stern look and spoke without mincing his words. An XN giggled and did not press further. Instead, she went to the side to begin her cultivation. At Mortal World Peak, she did not need to hide her cultivation level, so she cherished the opportunity to cultivate there. Guan descended the mountain alone, wandering aimlessly on the mountain. Because of the previous controversy over stealing herbs, Guan deliberately slowed down the pace of harvesting on Mortal World Peak. However, even so, with the constantly increasing production from the Outer World Cave, he was already able to amass nearly 4 million years of lifespan every year. His total lifespan had exceeded 400 million years. At this rate, Guan could also become rapidly stronger. Therefore, he now tried to keep a low profile, taking fewer disciples and intervening less, to avoid accelerating the pace of the major changes in Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Walking along the mountain path, Guan's divine thought reached out to Zhu Shi. Zhu Shi was at the lowest ranked sea peak, where Mortal World Peak had purposely allocated a sea area for disciples below the Immortal Path realm, and only those who had reached the Nirvana realm could pay tribute to divine peaks like Dingtian Peak. Years had passed, and Zhu Shi had become integrated into Mortal World Peak, with a low presence and her talents unknown to others, her life following the same routine as her previous days by Moonfall Divine Lake. Recently she had reached core formation, and within Mortal World Peak, she was essentially like a servant disciple, tending to the medicine garden, much like Guan had once been. Guan could sense the immense spiritual power contained within her. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body was like a black hole, quite challenging for even a free immortal to discern her physique. Once she fully released it, her cultivation level would skyrocket. In terms of physique, she was definitely the strongest Guan had ever seen in his time, with the ancient treasure body paling in comparison by several levels. At this moment, Zhu Shi was planting medicinal herbs. Even though she was alone in the garden, she conducted herself with utmost caution, appearing no different from an ordinary disciple. Guan watched for a while, then lost interest and retracted his gaze. He made some calculations. It was inevitable that Zhu Shi would eventually have a falling out with Mortal World Peak. Once her theft of the medicinal herbs came to light and led to a conflict with the disciples of Mortal World Peak, she would be expelled from the peak and might even be pursued and hunted. But that node was still very far away. Guan had no intention of stopping it. Along the way he foresaw that many disciples' fates would turn against Mortal World Peak. The reason for this was that there were simply too many disciples in Mortal World Peak, and it was implausible that all of them would remain from beginning to end. Even if he intervened early, as long as Mortal World Peak continued to take on disciples, such troubles would still arise. The deeper Guan delved into the research of cause and effect, fate and destiny, the more he could feel how terrifying destiny could be. Knowing and possessing the ability to change one's destiny is not necessarily a good thing. Because once changed, destiny introduces unpredictable variables, and those variables were beyond the control of the one who initiated the change. Only when a cause is present can one speculate the outcome. Without a beginning, it is impossible to calculate the result. Throughout the herb-gathering process that followed, Guan kept observing the cause and effect of Dingtian Peak disciples, enhancing his understanding of the way of cause and effect. Night fell. Guan did not return to the Supreme Sect, choosing instead to stay on Dingtian Peak. He lay on a chair with a bright moon above and a book in his hands, thoroughly enjoying himself. An Xan was still cultivating nearby, her body emanating specks of light star, ethereal and otherworldly, as if she could ascend to immortality at any moment. The courtyard resounded with the chirping of insects, adding a touch of vitality to the garden. Suddenly, Guan looked up, only to see a shooting star streak across the night sky at an incredible speed. Usually, such a shooting star signifies the arrival of a heaven and earth flying immortal. However, this time was different. Guan could feel that the other party's cultivation was far above that of heaven and earth flying immortal, likely a divine thought true immortal. Could it be that the immortal dynasty and the holy court are about to go to war again? Guan thought this to himself. The chief fortune of these two powers was too grand, capable of blocking cause and effect deductions. At least he was not yet able to comprehend it completely. He hoped for peace in the great heaven and earth, hoping the battle would wait 1,000 years or 10,000 years. By then he would be more confident in handling any catastrophe. It's time to establish a new medicine valley. Guan quietly contemplated, as he had entertained such a thought for a while. He chose an underwater location for the next medicine valley. Eggs must not all be put in one basket. As the moon set and the sun rose, the next morning Guan sent an Xan back, then went alone to a mortal-seeking island to exchange his own share of the island master's profits for a large quantity of medicinal herb seeds. He left this task to island master Sun Hanfeng. Sun Hanfeng did not question why Guan needed so many medicinal herbs. In the immortal cultivation world, the demand for medicinal herbs was no less than that for spirit stones. No one would complain about having too few herbs. The higher the realm, the greater the need for herbs. He only envied Guan's capability. It was not until the evening that Sun Hanfeng handed over a high-level storage bag to Guan, filled with medicinal herbs. Night descended once again, and Guan arrived at the largest sea area in Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Under the night sky, the waves rolled furiously, creating an oppressive atmosphere. The demon energy here was extremely dense, with only rare traces of the breath of cultivators of the human race. Guan flew into the sea, which was extremely deep. The deepest point lay more than 100,000 miles from the surface, and it concealed numerous demon creatures as terrifying as heaven and earth flying immortals, and there were even traces of the aura of the carefree primordial immortal. Since the great heavenly spirit land was controlled by the human race, the powerful demon creatures had no choice but to band together. They formed their own world within this sea, isolated from the rest of the world. As Guan descended some distance, the surroundings became pitch black and oppressive. Upon reaching 10,000 miles beneath the surface, a green light appeared below, resembling a boundless green ocean. He saw numerous tiny sea creatures that, although not yet possessing spiritual wisdom, were incredibly fast, comparable to cultivators in the core formation realm. After passing through this green sea, darkness returned. Continuing downward, from time to time he saw various lights, all emitted by demon creatures. Guan even saw several cave abodes situated on the mountainous bodies of the ocean. Further down he even saw a demon city radiating dazzling light, with countless demon creatures coming and going. In this way, Guan arrived at the depths of the sea floor without any demons noticing. He found a region with no demon activity and used his mana to demarcate a 100-mile radius on the sandy bottom. Then he created a clone. With the clone's great mana, he formed a barrier so that beings outside could not see inside it. His original self then began casting spells to create an environment suitable for the growth of medicinal herbs. The spiritual energy at the bottom of the sea was immense, enough for the herbs to thrive. After altering the environment, he began to construct an array. An ancient hour later. This undersea medicine valley had been sown with medicinal herb seeds. He didn't intend to keep demon creatures to guard this medicine valley. His clone would suffice in the future. Although the clone did not have independent thought, if there were any movement, it could still alert Guan in a timely manner. When the time came, Guan would project his consciousness onto the clone, which could use the clone's power to resolve any trouble. Even a free immortal would be no match for his clone. After making all preparations, Guan went to the edge of the medicine valley, took out a steel and planted it in the sand. Then, using the fate-determining pen, he wrote on the steel, "Hidden Spirit Palace." He called it a palace because he planned to build one there later, which could even serve as a dojo. Guan admired his own handwriting. It was truly becoming more elegant. He then vanished from the spot, returning to the Supreme Sect. The sea floor was silent. Outside the Hidden Spirit Palace was darkness, like an abyss. Occasionally, enormous figures like mountain ranges swam above the Hidden Spirit Palace, while Guan's clone meditated without opening its eyes. 15 years later. In early summer, Guan sat in the pavilion of Mystic Valley, admiring his attribute panel. He was very close to his 500 million year lifespan mark. The high-rank medical herbs of Outer World Cave would bring him a substantial increase in lifespan in the coming years, delighting his mood. Life was monotonous, but Guan did not find it dull. Watching his lifespan grow, he felt like he was leveling up in a game, a very fulfilling feeling. A knock came at the door and Guan said casually, "Come in." At his words, the door opened and Lu Jiujia entered. At 518, Lu Jiujia appeared to be just over 40, with a long beard that added to his imposing presence. He approached and gave a formal bow to Guan, saying, "Brother Gu, the Chen family's Medicine Valley has refused my terms. They continue to encroach on Mystic Valley's territory. What should be done?" Years had passed, and as the Supreme Sect grew stronger and remained uninvaded, more and more Medicine Valleys appeared outside the outer sect. Some were Medicine Valleys managed by the Supreme Sect, while others were cultivated by families to accumulate resources for their descendants. A Medicine Valley had sprung up around Mystic Valley, even larger in territory than Mystic Valley itself. The Chen family, a family that had risen to prominence in the last millennium, had elders in the Supreme Sect's intersect city who held high status and great power. Having heard this, Guan responded, "No worries, I'll have an X and go there tomorrow. In no more than 3 days their Medicine Valley will vanish." Upon hearing this, Lu Jiujia's face broke into a smile. He had no doubts about his brother's words. Brother Gus' influence was not small after all, and the Chen family was merely testing his bottom line. Otherwise, they would have already tried to seize Mystic Valley. Guan looked up at Lu Jiujia and asked, "How goes your cultivation lately?" Decades ago, Lu Jiujia had broken the cultivation level restrictions of the innate reincarnation skill. With Guan's secret guidance in the path enlightenment, his maximum lifespan had reached 700 years. But 700 years was not long. Lu Jiujia's cultivation level had grown too slowly, currently only at the 9th layer of the core formation realm. Even if he released his cultivation again, it seemed unlikely he'd reach the divinity transformation realm. By all appearances, Lu Jiujia had no hope of achieving nirvana in this life. Hearing the question, Lu Jiujia scratched his head and said, "Honestly, brother, I feel increasingly powerless. When cultivating, I find my heart weary and my thoughts wandering." Guan replied, "There's nothing to be done then, you must find a way to overcome it." Lu Jiujia could only nod. He felt helpless and ashamed. His brother had looked after him so much over the years, and he felt he had let his brother down. Changing the subject, he said, "Speaking of which, brother, a prodigy has appeared in the Medicine Valley recently. Would you like to meet him?" As he brought up the prodigy, his excitement surged. After managing the affairs of Mystic Valley for hundreds of years, this was the first time he had encountered such a genius. It made him proud to be associated. Chapter 382, Jiang Shi's Past. Do you want me to meet him? Guan picked up a book from the table and smiled warmly at Lu Jiujia. He no longer cared about mere talent. But humans are not emotionless plants. Lu Jiujia and that disciple shared a deep bond, almost like father and son, and he wished to secure a better future for the disciple, which prompted him to speak to Guan. Seeing his fellow disciples smile, Lu Jiujia gave an awkward smile and a false cough, saying, "I do hope you can meet him. Not only is his talent outstanding but he is also very diligent. If that's the case, bring him up." Guan shook his head with a chuckle, dismissing the brotherly relationship. Lu Jiujia had been so dedicated for many years without complaint. Who was he to refuse him this small favor? Even without revealing his true cultivation level, Guan could change someone's life with just a word, thanks to his 500 years of networking in the Supreme Sect. Upon hearing this, Lu Jiujia's eyebrows shot up in joy, and he quickly thanked Guan before hurrying off. Guan began to read. Although he spent most of his time away from Mystic Valley, Lu Jiujia often stocked the place with books, ensuring that he always had something different to read. It wasn't long before Lu Jiujia returned. A young man followed him, dressed in modest cloth garments. His features were not particularly handsome, but he had a fair complexion and a somewhat slender frame. The young man was extremely nervous and looked at Guan only briefly before lowering his gaze, daring not to look again. Lu Jiujia stepped forward to introduce the young man, while Guan sent a lifespan detection towards him. Jiangshi, Foundation Establishment Realm 2nd Layer 23/350/4800. A lifespan of 4,800 years. Truly a rarely seen talent. Disciple Jiangshi pays respects to master. Jiangshi knelt down, bowing reverently. Guan habitually peered into Jiangshi's karma, deducing his past and future before showing a gentle smile and saying, "Rise. There's no need for such formalities here in Mystic Valley." Jiangshi looked up, saw his smile, and relaxed significantly before standing up to speak. Guan kept deducing while casually talking with Jiangshi, taking interest in his cultivation practice. This was Jiangshi's first encounter with a nascent soul realm cultivator. Although nervous inside, he spoke naturally, neither servile nor overbearing. Seeing Jiangshi's demeanor, Lu Jiujia smiled in satisfaction, feeling that Jiangshi was not embarrassing him. In his view, his brother had met countless talents. If Jiangshi had been daunted, he would surely be looked down upon by Guan. Not to mention Li Ya or In Hao, let alone someone like Wu Ju in their sect, who was so spirited he had to address Guan as Brother Gu. Suddenly, Guan deduced something. His expression turned unnatural, but his tone did not change. After a while, Guan said, I am aware of your situation. You may go down and continue your cultivation." Jiangshi paused momentarily, then bowed and left. When he was downstairs, Lu Jiujia finally asked Guan, "Brother, what do you think? Can this boy meet your standards?" Guan pondered. "His talent is indeed good. I can introduce him to a master." Lu Jiujia pressed, "Can't he follow you for cultivation?" With Jiangshi's aptitude, finding a master should be easy, but in Lu Jiujia's eyes, having Guan as his master would be the greatest path for Jiangshi. For several hundred years, though he never asked, he felt that his brother shared an inseparable bond with Sword Venerable Fudao. The precursor, Flying Leaf Sword Immortal, always made moves around Mystic Valley, and Sword Venerable Fudao's renowned battle had coincidentally saved him in Yilan Zhenqin. A multitude of factors were too coincidental to ignore. And the innate reincarnation skill, such a miraculous skill, is unmatched in the Supreme Sect. He was wise enough not to question Guan, nor dare to discuss this matter with anyone else. If Jiangshi could follow Guan for cultivation, he might later gain the favor of Sword Venerable Fudao. "Jiujia, you like him that much?" Guan stared at Lu Jiujia and asked. Lu Jiujia replied, "When he was 7, I brought him to Mystic Valley and watched him grow up, just like a son to me." Guan sighed, "If I personally take him in, he would be bound to Mystic Valley, and you might die because of him, and he will also cause great trouble." According to his calculations, Jiangshi appeared to have a good character but was unscrupulous in his pursuit of immortal cultivation. After hundreds of years, gaining a position even as a servant disciple in Mystic Valley was challenging. The Chores Hall would select suitable disciples for Mystic Valley for profit, leading to current disciples being either rich or noble. At the age of 7, in order to enter Mystic Valley, he had found out in advance the list arranged by Chores Hall for Mystic Valley and drugged those he viewed as threats to miss their chance. No one suspected a 7-year-old child, so he succeeded. After entering Mystic Valley, even if some doubted him, no one dared to trouble him. After that, Jiangshi behaved very cautiously, concealing his true nature well. Guan predicted that in the future he would steal the ultimate skill from the Supreme Sect, causing their cultivators to hunt him down, and Lu Jiujia, in an attempt to protect him, would mistakenly be killed by a cultivator from the Supreme Sect. Even though this was a future without Guan's intervention, it at least showed that Jiangshi was not simple. As long as he maintained his current relationship with Lu Jiujia, trouble would inevitably come. Guan had calculated thousands of possible deaths for Lu Jiujia, most of them related to Jiangshi. Hearing Guan's words, Lu Jujia's expression changed drastically. He didn't reflexively rebut but carefully reminisced. Had it been someone else who said this, he would certainly have been annoyed, but coming from his senior brother, he couldn't help but seriously ponder. Although he valued Jiang Shi, how could Jiang Shi compare to his senior brother in his heart? Even as he held Jiang Shi in high esteem, he did not take it upon himself to teach the innate reincarnation skill to Jiang Shi. I understand. Lu Jiujia took a deep breath, dropped these words, raised his hand in salute and turned to leave. Guan didn't say more and continued reading. Jiang Shi still didn't pose a threat to him. By evening, Guan left Mystic Valley and reached the Third Medicine Valley. He first found an Xian, revealed everything about the Chen family, and arranged for an Xian to visit the Inner Sect City tomorrow. The great elder of the Inner Sect City was from the LV family, and, which the relationship between Guan and LV Badian, the LV family would definitely take action. Summer passed and autumn arrived, and in the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. That night, Lu Jiujia was cultivating in his house when he heard a knock on the door and without opening his eyes said, "Come in." The door was pushed open and Jiang Shi walked in, approaching Lu Jiujia to salute. "What is it?" Lu Jiujia asked, his tone indifferent. Jiang Shi could sense the distance in his tone. "Eldest senior brother, I was wrong." Jiang Shi suddenly knelt down, his tone somber. In Mystic Valley there was only one master, which was Guan. Even though they were like father and son, Jiang Shi could only call Lu Jiujia eldest senior brother. Lu Jiujia opened his eyes and furrowed his brows. Jiang Shi pressed his forehead to the ground and, gritting his teeth, said, "Although I'm not clear what exactly Master told you that day, I can feel your attitude. I admit that as a child I did wrong, but I had no choice. Before my family was annihilated by the Emperor, they secretly sent me to Supreme Sect, and I had to find a way to preserve my life. At the age of 7, Mystic Valley was the most formidable place I had heard of, so He confessed all his childhood actions. Lu Jiujia was quite shocked after hearing this. He hadn't expected him to have done such things, no wonder senior brother had an issue with him. But as he listened, Lu Jiujia's feelings became complex. He saw his own reflection in Jiang Shi. He too had made mistakes, and if not for his senior brother's care, he would have died long ago. Although Jiang Shi's mistakes weren't as severe as his, he couldn't let Jiang Shi cling to his senior brother. After Jiang Shi finished speaking, Lu Jiujia sighed. Jiang Shi looked at Lu Jiujia, his eyes red, and did not stand up for a long time. Lu Jiujia, with a complex expression, said, "Don't blame your master. It's me not wanting you to cause trouble in Mystic Valley." Jiang Shi hurriedly replied, "How could I possibly blame him? Over the years I've received so many elixirs in Mystic Valley. Without Master's protection, how could I possibly have reached Foundation establishment so quickly? It was my fault after all. If I were Master, I would have expelled a disciple like me from Medicine Valley long ago." Thinking of Guan, Jiang Shi truly had no complaints, only more awe. He had thought that no one knew of his childhood actions, but it turned out his master knew. Knowing this, yet still not abandoning him, how could he repay kindness with resentment? In previous years he had also seen his master. Each time his master would nod at him with a smile. Before, he merely thought his master was kind and didn't remember him, but now, knowing that his master had long understood his past, he felt his master was truly magnanimous, with the bearing of a sage. In fact, he was disgusted with his own past actions, but he had been driven to a dead end. At that time, his family was about to be executed, and he heard that the Valley Master of Mystic Valley had a very good relationship with the great cultivator, Li Ya, who was also the most favored son of the current emperor, so Mystic Valley became his only path to life. Lu Jiujia looked at him with many things he wanted to say, but when the words came to his lips, he couldn't utter them. "There are two paths for you: either go to a subsect, where Master will arrange a way out for you, and he will certainly not mistreat you, or stay in Mystic Valley and cultivate earnestly and temper your nature," Lu Jiujia said softly. Jiang Shi quickly said, "I choose to stay in Mystic Valley. I definitely won't let you and Master down. Do you want to hear my story?" Lu Jiujia stared at Jiang Shi, his expression turning somber. Jiang Shi naturally wanted to listen, so Lu Jiujia began to recount his own past, starting from when he joined Supreme Sect. Meanwhile, Guan was in the Hidden Spirit Palace at the bottom of the sea. He looked at the palace he had crafted, very satisfied. In the dim seabed, Hidden Spirit Palace glowed a ghostly blue, its walls reflecting the wave light, with two phoenix-shaped statues standing at the main gate. He was about to walk toward Hidden Spirit Palace when he suddenly sensed something and turned his head. In the eastern direction, A massive creature was approaching. A giant fish with a large head and small body, stretching 1,000 feet long, resembling a mountain range. It was chasing a small fish like Mount Tai chasing a pebble. The small fish was extremely fast, darting like lightning. No matter how the giant fish chased, it just couldn't catch up. Guiana's eyes narrowed, the surrounding seawater churned, luring the little fish to change direction and escape towards the hidden spirit palace. Chapter 383. Leah struck. After spending half the night in the hidden spirit palace. Deep into the night, Guan returned to Mystic Valley. Most of the buildings in the valley had turned off their lights, and the disciples were practicing in the darkness. Guan turned his head towards the forests at the edge of Mystic Valley. He saw a figure practicing swordsmanship. Jiangshi. For some reason, Guan suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu. He seemed to see a figure from hundreds of years ago. Back then, he had a disciple who also loved to practice swordsmanship in the forest, similarly burdened by a vendetta. Guan watched for a while, then walked towards his own loft. Back inside his room, he did not watch Jiangshi practice swordsmanship again. He recalled the prior conversation between Jiangshi and Lu Jiujia and had no intention of intervening. The most important aspect of being human is that everyone has their own choices to make. Guan had already warned them, and Lu Jiujia just needed to make a choice following that warning. Whatever the choice, Lu Jiujia would have to face the consequences. If Lu Jiujia insisted on suffering, then so be it. The greatest care Guan could offer to those around him was to ensure they would not die before their lifespan ended. Of course, nothing was absolute. Perhaps Jiangshi could change for the better. When Guan pointed out Jiangshi's past, he had already altered their destinies. A change for better or worse, time would tell. Only in the early hours of the morning did Jiangshi return from the woods, joining the disciples for morning drills, with Guan joining in, chatting and laughing with the disciples during the drills, even jovially talking with Jiangshi without dwelling on his past. Upon learning that Guan was not willing to accept him, Jiangshi did not harbor any animosity towards Guan, indicating that his nature was not beyond redemption. Naturally, Guan would not deliberately shut him out. Of course, by doing this, Guan also hoped to encourage Jiangshi to improve, and to reduce the chances of him causing trouble for Lu Jiujia. The day passed and Jiangshi became very compliant, no longer pleading for anything. Time flew like an arrow. 30 years passed in the blink of an eye. That day, Guan came back early from Heavenly Phoenix Mountain and stood downstairs, waiting for someone's return. Ji Xiaoyu walked out from inside the house and stood beside him, her gaze on him, yet she remained silent with a cold expression. Guan felt uneasy under her stare and glanced at her, asking, "What's wrong?" Ji Xiaoyu said softly, "Guan, you're really heartless, not talking to me for so many years?" Upon hearing this, Guan quickly turned around, helplessly saying, "I didn't talk to you? It's just because of your icy demeanor. I didn't dare to disturb you, and how often do you even leave the house in a year?" Ji Xiaoyu huffed, "Don't give me that. If it were your junior sister ignoring you, you'd definitely rush to appease her." "Impossible." "Oh really?" Ji Xiaoyu wore an incredulous look. Guan earnestly said, "My junior sister couldn't possibly ignore me." Ji Xiaoyu's pupils dilated slightly, and she was tempted to leave but restrained herself. Guan asked, "How has your cultivation been these years?" "I've already reached the 6th floor of the nascent soul realm." "Impressive, right?" Ji Xiaoyu, initially annoyed, couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing this. "Indeed impressive, almost catching up to me," Ji Xiaoyu said crisply as she contained her smile and responded coldly. Guan followed up, "What realm are you at now?" 8th floor of the unification realm." "What?" Guan widened his eyes in astonishment and asked, "How could you advance so quickly? Is cultivating to the unification realm that easy?" Ji Xiaoyu glanced at him and said, "You think it's quick because you don't take cultivation seriously. Regardless of the era, my cultivation speed is never considered top tier." "That's true." I mean, in my eyes you've always had an elite talent." Guan declared seriously, inwardly thinking women are really hard to please. Praise you when you mock me, don't praise you when you get upset. The two continued to chat, with Ji Xiaoyu intentionally easing their tense relationship, and Guan naturally went along with it. Before long, a figure flew in from the horizon. It was the person Guan was waiting for. The person flew swiftly and landed behind Guan, extending a hand towards him. Ji Xiaoyu quickly pulled Guan towards herself, causing the hand to miss. Guan took hold of Ji Xiaoyu's hand and turned to look. "Senior brother Li," Guan exclaimed excitedly. Li Ya's hand hovered in the air as he looked confusedly towards Ji Xiaoyu, not expecting her to react so quickly. Ji Xiaoyu felt Guan squeezing her wrist but did not pull her hand away, and she calmly looked at Li Ya. Guan let go, stepping forward to enthusiastically greet Li Ya. The two exchanged pleasantries for a while, with Li Ya guiding Guan towards his loft, and Ji Xiaoyu followed closely. As they ascended the stairs, Ji Xiaoyu was still behind them, which made Li Ya puzzled as he looked at Ji Xiaoyu. "Let her come along, she's one of us," Guan said with a smile. Ji Xiaoyu's lips slightly curved upon hearing this. Li Ya felt awkward but didn't refuse. After the three entered the house, Guan began making tea for Li Ya and inquired about his experiences over the years. Ji Xiaoyu sat on Guan's chair, and Li Ya didn't sit down immediately, narrating his experiences while scanning the furnishings in the room. Years had passed, yet there was little change in junior brother Gus' residence, evoking a rush of emotions in him. After Guan poured him a good tea, he brought over a chair and sat beside Ji Xiaoyu, listening to him recount his experiences. Hearing that he had entered the holy court, Guan couldn't help but exclaim, giving him ample face. Li Ya then spoke of the magic battle conference between the holy court and the immortal dynasty, piquing Ji Xiaoyu's interest. "Guess who I saw in the camp of the immortal dynasty? And how? Surprising, isn't it? He actually joined the immortal dynasty," Li Ya remarked with emotion. Guan thought to himself that he was well aware, and he also knew that Li Ya had been defeated by him again. Li Ya, through fortuitous opportunities, had reached the Mystic Heart realm, and encountered An Hao in the Magic Battle Conference. An Hao, stubborn as always, refused to use the power of Divine Exotic City and, unsurprisingly, was thoroughly defeated. It must be said that Li Ya was both fortunate and tragic. He could always keep up with An Hao's pace, but he just couldn't defeat him. Time and again he was utterly crushed. Despite being in the same realm, he was no match for An Hao. Compared to Yang Jian, Li Ya seemed more like An Hao's destined rival. "Did you two face off?" asked Guan. Li Ya shook his head and said, "Sadly no. Almost out of luck, I wanted to test his sharpness." A laugh echoed in his heart, the laugh of the divine exotic immortal spirit. He pretended not to hear it, continuing with his lamentations, unaware that Guan could hear the inner voice of divine exotic immortal spirit, who was debunking his boast to Guan. How intriguing. Li Ya began talking about the exceptional talents from both factions, and Guan would exclaim from time to time, keeping the atmosphere lively. Ji Xiaoyu didn't utter a word, listening quietly all the while. "You might not believe this, but the Immortal Dynasty actually won the Magic Battle Conference. They won one more match than expected. Who knows what changes this will bring about now? If the Holy Court can't suppress the Immortal Dynasty, war might be inevitable," Li Ya sighed. He even doubted if he had chosen the wrong path. Why doesn't Hao always have such smooth sailing? Ji Xiaoyu spoke up, "The talents of the Immortal Dynasty are naturally superior to ordinary people. Such competitions are advantageous for the Immortal Dynasty. The Holy Court probably let them win deliberately, aiming for a peaceful situation. If it came to a direct war, the Holy Court would win, but it would be a Pyrrhic victory, severely damaging the Holy Court." Li Ya looked at Ji Xiaoyu with surprise, not expecting her to make such an astute judgment. He knew Ji Xiaoyu's identity, and had initially thought Guan kept her nearby to remember the third young miss of the Ji family. Now it seemed this Ji Xiaoyu was not so simple. Sensing Li Ya's amazement, Guan introduced her. "This lady is no ordinary person. Not yet 400 years old, she has already attained the 8th floor of the Unification Realm, possessing a talent not inferior to An Hao. More than being not inferior, Ji Xiaoyu's true self was a free immortal. It would take An Hao and Li Ya at least 1,000,000 years, maybe even longer, to cultivate to a free immortal." "That impressive?" Li Ya's expression changed. He was genuinely shocked. Despite being a cultivator of the Mystic Heart realm, only he knew the sacrifices had made. His rapid increase in cultivation level wasn't due to innate talent. How has the Supreme Sect produced another remarkable genius? Li Ya resignedly said, "Indeed on par with An Hao." An Hao had just achieved the Mahayana realm a few years ago, reaching it at the age of 500. It's monstrous. Miss Ji might be able to achieve Mahayana realm at the same age. He felt incredibly bitter inside. He could accept An Hao's achievements since An Hao, like him, had traveled far and faced life-threatening dangers. What about Ji Xiaoyu? Staying by Guan's side and she could cultivate so quickly? Li Ya could hardly stay any longer. He took out 2 brocade boxes from his storage ring, saying, "These are gifts I've prepared for you. Luckily, I brought an extra one as a gift for meeting your younger sister. I have matters to discuss with the Supreme Sect, and I'll come back another time for a drink." With that, he stood up and walked towards the window. Suddenly remembering Ji Xiaoyu was still there, he turned and headed for the door. "That much in a hurry? Almost forgot something important, it's urgent." "All right then." Guan escorted Li Ye to the door and watched him fly away. He felt regretful. How had he managed to drive Li Ye away? Li Ye was actually his first true friend in this lifetime and he quite missed him. If Li Ye didn't seek him out, he would have to go find Li Ye. Perhaps it was the presence of a lady that made it awkward between brothers. Guan closed the door, returned to the table, and saw Ji Xiaoyu already opening the brocade boxes. There were 2 jade pendants inside. "I want this one," Ji Xiaoyu said undebatably, her cheerfulness undisguised. Without waiting for Guan's response, she began casting spells on the 2 jade pendants. Guan sat down on the chair Li Ye had just vacated, feeling a bit helpless. Li Ye really was speaking recklessly. He, Guan, was meant to be an ascetic cultivator who walked unscathed through a myriad of flowers. How could he possibly tie the knot with a lady? Thinking of Anhao, Guan immediately extended his divine thought towards him. Anhao was still inside the holy court, in a mysterious secret realm. With Guan's current Dao level, no formation or restriction within the holy court could obstruct him. He could even stealthily probe inside without a sound. Soon he located Anhao. "What's going on?" Guan was surprised. What great opportunity had Anhao encountered inside the holy court? Chapter 384, Great Fortune of Energy Movement. Deep-sea dragon carp. Guan saw Anhao receiving guidance from a free immortal, who was none other than the saint ancestor of the holy court. He explored Anhao's karma and understood the interactions between the two. To Guan's amazement, the saint ancestor wished to groom Anhao into the next Xingtian. Anhao had refused, but the saint ancestor insisted on imparting his teachings, even if Anhao would not become the Xingtian. Guan couldn't help but marvel at Anhao's unparalleled chi fortune. The first time he met Anhao, he couldn't resist lending a hand, and for some inexplicable reason he took a liking to the young man. Since embarking on the path of immortality, Anhao had made more friends than enemies, which was key to his smooth progression. After joining the immortal dynasty, to receive the highest inheritance from the archenemy of the dynasty, the holy court, if that's not being a favored child of heaven, Guan didn't believe it. While he was reflective, this was Guan's prized disciple, and he could not let Anhao come to harm. He carefully predicted and made sure the saint ancestor wouldn't harm Anhao before he could be at peace. He withdrew his divine thought and continued chatting with Ji Xiaoyu. After decades of a cold war, Ji Xiaoyu had a lot to say, as if she wanted to express all her accumulated words, and Guan, being a great conversationalist, kept her spirits high, quickly drawing out her continuous laughter. Meanwhile, in the holy court within the Tao realm, beside a misty lake, the saint ancestor sat on a round rock, eyes opening to glimpse the occasionally visible Anhao on the lake surface, his brow furrowing. "Strange, why am I suddenly feeling uneasy?" the saint ancestor thought in surprise. Since becoming a free immortal, he hadn't had such a feeling. He could see the past and future of all things, and even if he faced an unbeatable opponent, he was confident in his escape. To say bluntly, unless his time was near, it was impossible for him to die. With such power, how could he feel such inexplicable unease? While pondering, the saint ancestor kept his eyes on Anhao, his gaze filled with expectation. This world is becoming more dangerous, with more and more unpredictable people and events emerging between heaven and earth, with heavenly demons lurking from the outer heaven. How long can a free immortal maintain peace? This young man's talent is rarely seen, comparable to a Xingtian. Looking at his past, he always encounters mentors, even has the mysterious holy sword as a master. Only he could resolve the ancient irreconcilable grievances of the great heavenly spirit land. The saint ancestor's eyes gleamed brighter. From the first glance at Anhao, he was attracted. This attraction was inherent, and even as a free immortal, he felt drawn to it. Of course, this attraction was just a favorable impression and would not influence his major decisions. If Anhao offended him, he would not be lenient. He valued Anhao because he saw him as a bearer of a great fortune of energy movement. He had encountered such a great fortune holder 2 million years ago, someone he revered and aspired to emulate. Sadly, he didn't know whether they were dead or alive now. The saint ancestor's thoughts gradually drifted to the distant past, and a blurry figure appeared in his eyes. Days later, Guan went to the main city of the sect to find Li Ya, and the two drank heartily for a day and a night. Indeed, with Ji Xiaoyu around, Li Ya found it hard to speak his mind. Only when he was alone with Guan could he let his guard down and talk about the hardships of these years. Something recently troubled him. It was his relationship with Li Xiandao. From childhood, he felt that his father, the emperor, did not like him, with this feeling intensifying after his mother's death. Now over 500 years old, he suddenly discovered Li Xiandao actually loved him deeply, even sending someone to invite him back to the imperial city. How could his feelings not be complex? Now that he knows I'm successful, he wants to win me over, not a chance. He has a genius child, let that genius inherit his throne. What's he want with me? Li Ya spoke dejectedly. Guan didn't know what comfort to offer. In fact, Li Zuando's cultivation level was stronger than Li Ya's, and Li Xiandao had no intention of passing the throne to his descendants. He wanted to remain emperor forever. For this reason, Guan thought that Li Zuando's invitation for Li Ya to return might be genuine. However, he couldn't intervene in other people's father-son relationships. LV Baishan's relationship with his son LV Xian was even worse. Over the years, LV Baidian would often tell Guan about his helplessness and regret when dealing with LV Xian. Looking at Li Ya, Guan thought he definitely should not have children. It would be too troublesome. Just thinking about the break between Long Zhan and Long Xian in the lifespan samsara gave him a headache. Even with a high cultivation level, one couldn't please everyone, especially when conflicts arose among close relatives. It only added to the emotional burden. At least Guan felt his current life was quite good, treating his disciple like a child. If the disciple courted death, he would help if possible, and if not, then so be it, with no pressure and at most heartache. Senior brother, do you know how Xiao Chuan spent his last 100 years? Guan suddenly asked. Li Ya was startled, naturally remembering Xiao Chuan. He frowned and asked, Xiao Chuan died. Guan nodded and said, yes, it happened many years ago. In his final years he was entangled by his descendants' troubles, affecting his cultivation, but he had no regrets, even enjoying it. Li Ya frowned. Guan reflected, blood is thicker than water, it's not just a saying. Think about it, did your father ever mistreat you? Suppressed you? At most, he was just not that caring. It's not so atrociously evil requiring a severance of father-son relations, right? You're a well-known cultivator, and each time you leave, many years pass before you return. Sometimes, I'm not even sure when will be the last time I see you. Maybe your father thinks similarly, fearing to leave regrets. Listening to Guan's words, Li Ya opened his mouth but finally just sighed. He knew Li Xiandao had limited talent, now only at the nascent soul realm, and Guan's words made sense. When I leave next time, I might not return for hundreds of years. At that moment, Li Ya felt loneliness as well as fear. He feared that many years later he would be left alone in the world without family or friends. Li Ya looked at Guan and asked, Junior brother Gu, how about you come with me to the holy court to cultivate? I'll find a way for you to stay there. His tone was resolute since, in his life, he had made many acquaintances, but most of them had been relationships of convenience. Guan was his first true friend. There had been another person before, Zhang Buku, but his whereabouts were unknown, with his life or death uncertain. Li Ya thought of the scene where Guan would die, and he felt terrible even if it were a peaceful death. I'd rather not. Isn't going to the holy court just asking for trouble? Oh brother, don't overthink it. Maybe I have a natural destiny to live a long life of 10,000 years? Guan shook his head, and his easy smile made Li Ya feel even more distressed. Why should someone as good as junior brother Gu be limited by his talent, while someone as arrogant as Han can always laugh last? Li Ya felt that the heavens were so unfair. Forget it, let's just drink. Guan urged and started looking forward to the scene thousands of years later, when Li Ya would find that he still wasn't dead. Sorry brother, but your junior is bound to live longer than anyone. Li Ya only stayed at the Supreme Sect for a month before leaving. Guan, with a spectator's amusement, spied on Li Ya's return to the imperial city. As he expected, the meeting between Li Ya and Li Xiandao was extremely awkward. Even though Li Xiandao tried hard to force a smile, he couldn't dissolve the awkwardness between father and son. However, the fact that the two could sit down and talk was a good start. It's worth mentioning that Li Ya's first encounter with his younger brother Li Lingtian was unpleasant. The brothers fought, and henceforth, Li Lingtian had one more opponent he wanted to defeat. Royal family affairs are really complicated. Guan felt this way at the moment. Until the end of the year, Guan saw another family matter. The Ji family came to find Ji Xiaoyu wanting her to return to the family, but she refused, causing a stiff conflict. Unlike in her previous life, Ji Xiaoyu had grown up this time and had become even tougher, beyond the control of the Ji family. Li Yas and Ji Xiaoyu's situations further solidified Gu An's resolve not to start a family. At least not for now. Gu An hadn't yet achieved longevity and had many enemies to surpass. How could he be hindered by familial ties? If he already had family, he would naturally take great care of them, but since he didn't, there was no need to deliberately create familial bonds to satisfy emotional needs. Another new year arrived, bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the new. After several days of festivity, Gu An visited the Hidden Spirit Palace alone. Over the years, this place continuously produced low-rank medical herbs, allowing Gu An to harvest them each time he visited. He had just started collecting when he furrowed his brows. Why has it come again? He talked to himself. Only he and his clone were in the dojo of the Hidden Spirit Palace, and his clone couldn't communicate with him. He was referring to a very fast little fish that approached the dojo every now and then. Even though his clone cast spells to drive it away, it never gave up. It seemed that the more he drove it away, the more it was attracted to this place. Gu An decided to teach the little fish a lesson. He stood up and walked to an open area nearby. With a thought, a 1-meter-long fish appeared in front of him, and he stepped on it to pin it down. It was a goldfish resembling a carp, with scales brighter than gold and quite handsome. Its eyes were like gems. The goldfish widened its eyes, looking completely bewildered. Deep-sea dragon carp, Unification Realm, second layer 8504/12,000/15,000. To have lived 8,500 years and still be so small. Gu An found it curious, as most demons grew larger as their cultivation level increased. Heavenly demons like Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing and Tian Bai had very large true forms. The deep-sea dragon carp started to struggle violently, but no matter how it thrashed, it couldn't free itself from Gu An's foot. Under Gu An's suppression, it seemed to have no cultivation, making little noise and not posing any threat to nearby medicinal herbs. Gu An took out the Qinghong sword, looking like he was about to kill it. The deep-sea dragon carp shut its eyes in terror and trembled incessantly. To Gu An's amusement, he saw tears streaming from its eyes, resembling pearls as they squeezed out. Scared now? Will you dare to swim here again? Gu An asked. The deep-sea dragon carp opened its eyes and hurriedly shook its head. Gu An suddenly frowned, hesitating, but you've already discovered my dojo. Letting you escape might bring me trouble later. Never mind, I'd better eat you. Should I steam you or should I grill you? The deep-sea dragon carp's eyes widened in extreme fear, and its tears streamed down. Chapter 385, Fated Destiny. The deep-sea dragon carp did not understand what steaming meant, nor did it grasp the concept of char grilling, but its cultivation level was not low, and it could sense the hostility in Gu An's voice, which filled it with extreme panic. Gu An watched it cry incessantly and he felt amused. Such a coward, and yet it deliberately sought out danger. How peculiar. Wait a minute. Could this fellow be like Zhu Shi, who also loved to act? Gu An decided to teach it a harsh lesson, so he cast an illusion on it. Immediately afterward, the deep-sea dragon carp saw a fish that looked exactly like itself being steamed, then char-grilled. When it saw the char-grilling, its fish skin was scorched black, crisped up and oozed oil. It could not take it anymore. Accompanied by a spasm, the deep-sea dragon carp at Gu An's feet fainted dead away. It's this weak. Gu An used his foot to flip the deep-sea dragon carp's body, and seeing that it remained motionless, he felt even more exasperated. After hesitating for a moment, Gu An moved the deep-sea dragon carp to a distant part of the sea. If you come back, you're certainly dead. If you dare to reveal my location, your end will be even more miserable than what you've seen. Gu An transmitted his words into the deep-sea dragon carp's mind. Given the realm of the deep-sea dragon carp, when it awoke, even if it did not understand the language of the human race, it would still understand what Gu An meant to express. As the clouds dispersed beside the great lake, and Hao stood with his back to the Saint Ancestor, gazing up at the sky. The Saint Ancestor looked at Hao with increasing satisfaction in his eyes, as if viewing a rare treasure. I never thought you could master the heavenly Tao divine record so quickly. Given time, there will be no one in this world who can rival you, the Saint Ancestor praised. And Hao turned his head and glanced at the Saint Ancestor from the corner of his eye, asking, has Shuntian managed to master this skill? The Saint Ancestor replied, of course, but you will surpass him sooner or later. Upon hearing this, Hao fell into contemplation. Having mastered the heavenly Tao divine record, he deeply understood the strength of this skill, which gave him a greater appreciation for Shengxian's might. Even in the immortal dynasty, all immortals deemed the holy court's Shengtian the strongest in the world. How powerful must one be to win the respect even from rival forces regarding one's strength? I must leave now. Thank you, Senior, for your teachings. I will never forget this kindness, An Hao said. He turned around and bowed to the Saint Ancestor. The Saint Ancestor asked, "Will you make an enemy of the Holy Court in the future?" An Hao looked at him and answered, "I am not sure, no one can predict the future. However, I can assure you, I will not make enemies with the Holy Court on behalf of the immortal dynasty. My joining was solely for the pursuit of greater strength." The Saint Ancestor nodded, smiling, and said, "Junior, may you attain nirvana early. Once you do, you will awaken your true power and feel the force of the heavenly Tao, the supreme way in this world." And Hao acknowledged, then turned and leaped, transforming into a white light that sped away, disappearing into the distant clouds in the blink of an eye. The Saint Ancestor watched his departure with a sense of wonder, musing, "I thought this was a declining epoch, but now it seems to be the sign of a prosperous era. Who knows, looking back in 1,000,000 years, what myths will have emerged?" While the Saint Ancestor was ruminating, Guan was also reflecting. Inside the hidden spirit palace. Standing on the path between the medicine gardens, Guan looked into the distance, murmuring, "This guy really is persistent." He was referring to the deep-sea dragon carp. Since their last encounter, 60 years had passed. After several days of silence, the deep-sea dragon carp began its search for the hidden spirit palace, a quest that lasted for 60 years. Over those 60 years, most of the disciples from the Third Medicine Valley and Mystic Valley had changed, and in the mundane world, several generations had passed on. The deep-sea dragon carp, having traversed many seas and faced countless dangers, finally arrived in the sea area of the hidden spirit palace. Now it was covered in wounds, its scales no longer the resplendent sheen of old. Here a few were missing, there some were gone, presenting a very pitiful sight. Its will moved Guan. He could discern that throughout those years, the deep-sea dragon carp had not divulged his or the hidden spirit palace's existence to other demon creatures. Without probing for information, the creature had managed to find its way here. It seemed to possess hidden talents unknown to all. Under normal circumstances, given the distance, even a Mahayana realm might have difficulty finding the hidden spirit palace in 60 years. Oh well. Guan shook his head and continued to pick medicinal herbs. He opened his attribute panel while gathering the herbs. Name, Guan, lifespan, 612/958 702 371, physique, mixed yuan refined void body, cultivation level, Taoist hidden immortal realm perfect, almost 10 billion years of lifespan. Awesome. Guan was in high spirits. This was lifespan he had earned through hard work, not through theft or slaughter, and he felt a great sense of accomplishment. The world was stirring with excitement. Great powers and geniuses were emerging one after another, while he quietly developed his strength, watching the struggles of the world. He was racing toward longevity at an even faster pace, and the feeling was exhilarating. The more he thought about it, the happier Guan became, and he couldn't help but hum a tune. After he finished gathering the medicinal herbs, he returned to the Supreme Sect. The deep-sea dragon carp had just entered the region. It would take another month or two to get near the hidden spirit palace, so he was not in a hurry to meet it. If the deep-sea dragon carp were to die on this last stretch of road, it would indicate that such fortune was not in its destiny, and no one could be blamed for that. Returning to the Third Medicine Valley just after midday, the hot summer breeze blew into the valley, and sunlight shone on the seven stars mirror in Guan's hand, refracting a dazzling light. Guan used the seven stars mirror as a fan, leisurely strolling forward while waving it to cool down. An Xen suddenly ran over, stopping in front of him and said, "Master Wuju is in trouble." Guan asked, "What happened?" "Today I went to the inner sect city and heard that he has been thrown into the dungeon of the Supreme Sect, apparently for harming a fellow sect member," an Xen replied quickly. Upon hearing this, Guan furrowed his brow and said, "I'll go to the inner sect." After speaking, he turned and left. An Xen breathed a sigh of relief. Telling his master about the situation was enough. With his master's capabilities, resolving it wouldn't be difficult. Less than half an hour later, Guan, following the guidance of a dungeon disciple, reached the 7th floor underground. Having been with the Supreme Sect for 600 years, this was his first visit to this place. As the supreme sect grew stronger, the restrictions of the dungeon steadily increased. It was said that the 18th underground floor imprisoned an immortal. The dungeon disciple halted in front of a cell, briefly explained a few things and then turned and left. Moving beyond the 5th floor underground was not something just anyone could decide to do. Guan had pulled some strings, so the dungeon disciple was quite courteous to him. The cell was made from special redwood, its surface carved with talismans and containing multiple layers of restrictions. Guan looked inside the cell door. It was dim inside and Wu Ju, with his hair disheveled, leaned against the wall, sleeping. Inside the dungeon, cultivation was not possible. Spiritual energy was cut off, and Wu Ju had become noticeably thinner. Guan had known when Wu Ju had been caught, but he was not worried about Wu Ju's death given the protections within the Supreme Sect, so he didn't come earlier. When an Xian found Guan from the standpoint of causality logic, Guan should visit Wu Ju too. Guan, who studied the way of cause and effect, began to see the causality in the world as a game. He was willing to abide by the rules of the game unless the game annoyed him, at which point he would change it. "Brother Wu, I've come to see you," Guan said, simultaneously casting a lifespan detection on Wu Ju. Wu Ju Unification Realm 5th Floor 614/4500/8300, His maximum lifespan finally increased. This kid really needed to experience hardship to reach path enlightenment. Everything coming too easily was not good. The Wu Ju in the dark slowly opened his eyes, his vision was blurred, only able to make out a silhouette outside the cell door. After Guan called out to him again, Wu Ju's vision suddenly became clear. "Brother Gu," Wu Ju looked at Guan, his face full of shame, not knowing what to say. He was still very touched. The crime he had committed was serious, and the Fang family had formidable influence, leading the Supreme Sect to abandon him. Those friends of his had been avoiding him like the plague. Having been imprisoned for so long, Guan was the first to visit him. How could he not be moved? "Why aren't you speaking? Do you not recognize me?" Guan feigned seriousness as he asked. He had already deduced the incident regarding Wu Ju killing a fellow member. The incident couldn't be entirely blamed on Wu Ju. The fellow member was also a genius of the Supreme Sect, who had borne a grudge against Wu Ju for a previous defeat and disliked him. After Wu Ju was defeated by Zhou Tongyu, he went out to gain experience and encountered the genius. Taking advantage of his numbers, he mocked Wu Ju as inferior to Zhou Tongyu, wasting the sect's investment. Wu Ju was not one to be bullied easily. An argument broke out between them, which escalated into a fight. The other party bore the intent to kill, leading Wu Ju to retaliate with full force, and eventually, a tragedy occurred. Since there were other sect members present, Wu Ju chose to return to the sect and report the incident, but those sect members turned against him, claiming Wu Ju struck first. And so Wu Ju was thrown into the dungeon, tarnishing his reputation. Regardless, Wu Ju indeed had killed a fellow sect member, and as a righteous path sect, such a crime was truly unforgivable in the eyes of the Supreme Sect. Wu Ju felt he had made a mistake and was too ashamed to face Guan. "I don't disown you, it's just that I'm too ashamed to face you," said Wu Ju, taking a deep breath and attempting to stay calm. Ever since he became known as a genius, too many people flocked around him, all of whom were nice to him. Along with being at different stages, Wu Ju met with Guan less and less. Sometimes he would even forget Guan was his most important brother. Now that he had fallen, all those close friends refused to see him, yet it was Guan who came. In that moment, Wu Ju was filled with self-mockery. What exactly happened? Guan asked, pulling Wu Ju out from his dejection. Wu Ju calmed himself and began to recount the events and the reasons behind them. After a while, when Wu Ju finished speaking, Guan stayed silent for a moment, then said, "It cannot all be blamed on you. Didn't anyone upstairs believe you?" Wu Ju replied helplessly, "How could they believe it? It's not like they can use soul-searching skill on those people, and even if they did it to me, how many would be willing to believe?" Guan said, "No problem, I will speak to the sect leader about it." Wu Ju responded, "The sect leader has already spoken with me, asking me to bide my time until the controversy settles somewhat, and then he will find a way." As the Supreme Sect grew stronger, LV Badian, being the sect leader, found his authority diminishing. Guan comforted him, "No problem, I will speak with him again. If that doesn't work, I will ask others to speak up as well. I refuse to believe that the so-called Sheng family can have their way all alone within the Supreme Sect." Chapter 386. the sect with 10 million disciples. Upon hearing Guan's words of comfort, Wuju could only offer a bitter smile. An amused chuckle came from a nearby cell. Covering the sky with one hand? The Sheng family really has such capability. Guan turned his head to look and saw an old man with white hair approaching the edge of the prison cell, his hands bony and clutching the mahogany bars. He looked at Guan with a face full of scorn. Guan feigned a frown and asked, "Could it be that you are also from the Sheng family?" The old man laughed and said, "If I were from the Sheng family, how would I have ended up like this? Like your friend, I offended the Sheng family, and even the Hall of Elders told me to lay low for a while. I've been locked up for a century now, and I fear I will spend the rest of my days here, waiting for the day the Sheng family sheathes their butcher's blade." After listening, Wuju slightly lowered his head. Guan angrily said, "I refuse to believe it. Is the Sheng family really so tyrannical? I am going to find the sect leader now." With those words, he left with a swish of his sleeve. Wuju opened his mouth but in the end said nothing. Deep down, he too harbored a glimmer of hope. The Third Medicine Valley was a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The socially adept Guan might indeed find a way. After Guan's presence faded from the dungeon level, Wuju began to worry. He suddenly feared that if this did not succeed, it might instead implicate Guan. "Wuju, isn't it? I didn't expect you to have such a naive friend. Shouldn't the side of a genius be surrounded by hypocrisy?" The old man said in a mocking tone. Wuju didn't respond, too weary to engage with him. Wuju was already familiar with the man's toxic tongue, and he disdained to argue with such people. He seemed dejected, yet deep down he held a confidence. He was still capable of enlightenment. If no one stood up for him, one day he would uphold justice for himself. Meanwhile, after leaving the dungeon, Guan did not go directly to find LV Badian. Considering Wuju could find enlightenment, it was better to let him reflect for more time. Guan wandered around the inner sect city, meeting disciples who had graduated 200 years ago and probing information about the Sheng family. He could divine outcomes, but he preferred to immerse himself in this grudge and investigate in an ordinary capacity. If that failed, then he could only win by virtue. Guan's disciples were spread throughout the supreme sect. While it was said he was discerning about the Sheng family, in reality he was enjoying free meals and drinks. Having wandered all day, he felt satisfied body and soul. From today's findings, the Sheng family indeed held significant power. There were many clans within the supreme sect, but few could stand out and incite fear as they did. The disciples were fearful that Guan would offend the Sheng family. Upon understanding why he was investigating the Sheng family, they all advised him to stay out of it. When Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley, it was already night. Lights shone brightly in the valley, and from a distance, Guan could hear the laughter and cheer of the disciples. Guan felt relieved. Thankfully, the powerful clans within the supreme sect had not jeopardized his Medicine Valley. If they had, blood would have flown like rivers. Guan stopped at the base of his own building but didn't go up immediately. Instead, he knocked on Ji Xiaoyu's door. "Come in." Ji Xiaoyu's pleasant voice echoed from inside, and Guan pushed the door open, then closed it behind him. As he approached Ji Xiaoyu, she curiously asked, "It's rare for you to seek me out proactively. Is something the matter?" "What kind of question is that? Can't I visit you without a reason? Weren't you the one who blamed me for not taking the initiative to see you for decades?" Guan said dissatisfiedly, about to turn around and leave. Sitting on the bed, Ji Xiaoyu quickly grabbed his wrist. "Of course you can visit. Come, sit down," Ji Xiaoyu said gently with a smile, pulling Guan to sit next to her. Guan grunted, "I saw your place was bright and lively, and something just drove me to come have a chat with you, but your first words angered me quite a bit." "Oh my, can't I admit my mistake?" Ji Xiaoyu replied helplessly. How could he suddenly become so childish? But it was quite amusing. Such were Ji Xiaoyu's thoughts as her lips curved upward involuntarily. Guan then smiled and said, "That's more like it. Today I saw Wuju, and he began to recount Wuju's trials, with Ji Xiaoyu listening attentively because she remembered Wuju well. After Guan finished talking about Wuju's situation, he continued with his interactions with other disciples. For the first half hour, Guan did all the talking. Ji Xiaoyu then figured out his intention. Surely he wasn't seeking her help, was he? In the end, Guan lamented, "Even within the supreme sect, injustice exists. Fortunately, our Medicine Valley keeps a low profile and serves the supreme sect undisturbed. Why are these clans so overbearing, and might they one day surpass the supreme sect?" Ji Xiaoyu responded, "It's possible but difficult. If it comes to that, the Supreme Sect might just become one of their subordinate forces. The stronger the Supreme Sect, the more hopeless it becomes for those disciples caught in dire straits, Guan sighed. He then stood up and said, "We've talked for so long, you should continue cultivating now. Your future is not limited by the Supreme Sect." After speaking, he walked away. Ji Xiaoyu watched his departing figure, wanting to say something but hesitated. Once the door was closed, she couldn't help but mutter, "He only visits when he needs something, and he even expects me to apologize while seeking my help?" She shook her head and chuckled, then took out a piece of talisman paper and began to write. As soon as Guan sat down, he saw a white dove's phantom flying away through the window, disappearing into the night sky in the blink of an eye. Guan's mouth curved up. He thought to himself, not bad, quite sensible. Several days later, LV Badian came to Guan, accompanied by an old acquaintance, Vice Sect leader Jihan Tian. The three sat down in the room. Bang! Jihan Tian suddenly slammed the table and cursed, "The Sheng family truly goes too far. Those overseas families really haven't integrated the principles of the righteous path of the Supreme Sect into their ideology." LV Badian's eyelids twitched and he said in a deep voice, "Why are you yelling?" "I'm outraged. You give the order to suppress the Sheng family and I'll absolutely support you." "Why don't you give the order?" "The Ji family has good relations with the Sheng family. I'm caught in the middle, it's difficult for me." "It sounds as if the LV family hasn't benefited from the Sheng family either. We are both in tough positions." Watching them pass the buck, Guan found it amusing but also felt that the Supreme Sect had become somewhat superficial. Indeed, with the rapid expansion of the Supreme Sect, the cultivation levels of native high-ranking members couldn't keep up with the pace of the sect, naturally diluting their power. Guan spoke up, "Suddenly I feel like writing a book." Ji Hantian's eyes lit up. "That's a good idea. Pan An's influence is still considerable." Guan glanced at him and said, "I'll write that the Sheng family is a powerful clan that the Ji family and LV family fear." Ji Hantian glared and said, "Guan, don't joke around." Guan asked, "I understand why the sect leader is here, but Elder Ji, why have you come?" Ji Hantian huffed, "It's all because of you. That girl Ji Xiaoyu is actually helping you, so I had no choice but to come myself." Guan immediately felt somewhat annoyed. When the third miss was forced to go to the 7-star spirit realm, you couldn't stop it. Now Ji Xiaoyu asks you for help, and you face difficulties again. The Ji family is strong, but it feels like it's all about making compromises? At this remark, Ji Hantian's expression instantly darkened. Guan then opened a drawer, took out the fate-determining pen, and from a stack of papers beside him, he pulled out a sheet of white paper. Seeing the two argue, LV Badian intervened, "I also trust in Wu Ju, but the Sheng family lost a disciple, one considered among the top 3 talents of this generation. We must provide an explanation to the Sheng family, and I assure you I won't let anything happen to Wu Ju." Regardless of his relationship with Guan, in the years where Guan had strategized, he truly felt that the strength of the Supreme Sect today could not be separated from Guan's contributions. Guan remained silent, writing down names on the paper, all individuals related to the Wu Ju incident, including those from the Sheng family and others. They knew the truth but were pushing Wu Ju towards an abyss. If they were compelled, that would be one thing, but the conflict began with them following the Sheng family genius and insulting Wu Ju and even attacking him. Their lies were to protect themselves. Choosing to be lapdogs and bullying others, they should prepare for the backlash. "What are you doing?" LV Badian frowned and asked. Guan continued writing without speaking, making him genuinely afraid that Guan might do something foolish. He solemnly said, "The Sheng family has a loose immortal. Do you know how high a loose immortal's cultivation level is? If the path of immortality were smooth, you'd have to cultivate for tens of thousands of years. The Supreme Sect hasn't had an immortal live that long." Tens of thousands of years. This phrase weighed heavily, making LV Badian and Ji Hantian feel immense pressure just thinking about the age of the Sheng family's loose immortal. Guan lifted his pen, gazing down at the names on the paper and said with discontent, "I hate my own powerlessness. If I were an immortal, how could I stand by and watch my close friends suffer?" After saying this, he gripped the fate-determining pen and made 2 strokes on the paper, drawing a large X as if to vent his frustration. LV Badian tried to comfort him, "Don't think like that, and besides, the Sheng family is just angry but hasn't pressed me any further." Guan looked at him, "Do you remember what I told you hundreds of years ago when you were still Elder Tian?" Upon hearing this, LV Badian immediately fell silent. Ji Hantian spoke earnestly, Guan, don't act impulsively. If we mess up, all three of us could be in trouble. We could be abandoned by our families, you could be abandoned by the Supreme Sect. All these are possible. Guan said, fine, I understand, I'll pretend I don't know about this matter. Seeing his indifferent expression, LV Batian was somewhat uneasy and asked, really? I am but a nascent soul realm cultivator. I can't break into dungeons or step through the Sheng family's gate. What can I do? Guan replied. LV Batian, after hearing this, could only sigh. I won't see you out, but I'll remember what you've said. While speaking, Guan pulled out a book from beside him. LV Batian wanted to say more, but Jihan Tian tugged at him, and after exchanging glances they stood up and left. Although Guan felt somewhat disappointed, he could also understand, not everyone had the same confidence as him. Nonetheless, he had already taken action. What happened next depended on how these two responded. If they didn't handle it well, they too should consider moving aside. This had nothing to do with personal connections. The Supreme Sect's sect leader and vice sect leader needed people with greater breadth of spirit to take on these roles, for the Supreme Sect was not just any clan sect, but a sect of millions of disciples. Chapter 387. The final road. LV Batian and another left, and after about half a month, rumors suddenly spread throughout the Supreme Sect. A group of crazed disciples were proclaiming throughout the inner sect city the incident of Sheng family's genius bullying Wu Ju, and consequently being killed in retaliation. The matter of Wu Ju killing a fellow sect member had already caused a huge uproar, and now these disciples were telling a different story, so how could it not provoke controversy? Even though those disciples were quickly controlled, the news still spread rapidly. Through the investigation of curious disciples, it turned out that the crazed group was originally the witness of Wu Ju's fratricide. Now, having seemingly lost their minds, they presented a different testimony from before, forcing people to consider the possibility of a conspiracy. Some suspected that someone behind Wu Ju had acted, others speculated that these individuals could no longer bear the psychological pressure and feigned insanity to reveal the truth, while some even believed that they had initially been poisoned by the Sheng family and were compelled to lie, but now that the effects of the poison were manifesting, they had lost their sanity and were revealing the truth with their last bit of lucidity. Opinions were varied, and Wu Ju once again became a center of attention within the Supreme Sect. The incident grew so significant that even members of the subsect such as Yi Lan and Zhen Qin came to find Guan, fearing he might get dragged into it. The Sheng family is truly ruthless, to actually poison someone. Tiske, even the subsect is discussing this now. Wu Ju is regarded as a top genius of the Supreme Sect, yet he lacks a family background. If this matter isn't handled well, those disciples without a family background will feel disheartened, Zhen Qin remarked astonishingly. Yi Lan was rather calm, saying, which sect could maintain peace over hundreds of years? There's always some troublemaker. Sword Venerable Fu Dao hasn't appeared for many years, it might be that the nobles are testing his attitude. Holding a book, Guan focused his divine thought on the distant ocean. The deep-sea dragon carp was being pursued by a group of demon creatures in grave danger. This guy too had gone through 81 difficulties, just one short of completion. Zhen Qin tossed her hair casually and said, let them create chaos, it's about time. Guan looked at her and asked, how about you? Have you been dealing with the ghost mother of ephemera lately? Upon hearing the name Ghost Mother of Ephemera, Zhen Qin's smile vanished and she snorted, I'm no match for her. I can't trouble Senior Jiang anymore, I can only cultivate first. Fueled by her hatred for Su Han, Zhen Qin's zeal in cultivation remained high, which also made her innate reincarnation skills quite effective. That's good, it's not easy for Jiang Qiong either. After saving you, she must be feeling quite awkward facing her own deputy sect master. Guan continued her thoughts. Zhen Qin nodded, then changed the subject. I heard from a master that the Yuanshu ancestor truly opened up a reincarnation realm right in the heavens, but who really knows what reincarnation is like? Speaking of reincarnation, Guan thought of Xiaochuan, who had been in the reincarnation vortex for a long time without reincarnating, at least within the great heavenly spirit land. Guan temporarily couldn't track his destruction Dao seal. Could he have reincarnated into another great heaven and earth? Is a divine thought true immortal that powerful? If there really is a reincarnation, I'm quite looking forward to it, just afraid that in reality, there is no reincarnation. If every person is reincarnated, then where did the original souls come from? Yi Lan raised a question. The two women began to explore the subject of reincarnation, intentionally avoiding the topic of Wuju. Guan chimed in occasionally and time passed quickly. As evening approached, the two women left. Guan then departed from the Third Medicine Valley, first heading to Mystic Valley, planning to stay for an ancient hour before heading to Hidden Spirit Palace. Upon arriving in Mystic Valley, he saw disciples gathered together, listening to an older disciple talking about the Sheng family, with Jiang Shi standing in front of a tree, also listening intently. The issue with the Sheng family had become so explosive that disciples from every tier were discussing it. The reason those disciples went mad was not actually related to the Sheng family. It was Guan who used the power of cause and effect to torment those disciples, continually making them witness the tragedy of that Sheng family genius. Over time, unable to escape the illusion realm, they had collapsed. As for revealing the truth about the Wuju, it was also guided by Guan using the power of cause and effect. At this very moment, the Sheng family was in turmoil, the higher-ups were overwhelmed, discussing how to handle the situation. Guan walked towards his disciples and joined them to watch the excitement and discuss. Upon seeing Guan, Jiang Shi immediately sat down, behaving very cautiously. Decades had passed and he still looked forward to cultivating with Guan. Even though he had reached the core formation realm, he had no thought of leaving Mystic Valley. The more this was the case, the less Guan wanted to accept him. He had deduced Jiang Shi's karma and found no great cultivator plotting, which made Guan even more uneasy. Why had Jiang Shi set his sights on him? Could it be the workings of the heavenly Tao setting him up for a calamity? Jiang Shi didn't know what Guan was thinking. He stayed in Mystic Valley because he feared being pursued by the Imperial family and the Li family. Without the strength to protect himself, he didn't want to leave Mystic Valley. As for Guan, although he felt that this master was no ordinary person, he didn't think in the direction of Sword Venerable Fudao. To him, Sword Venerable Fudao was just a vague legend. Except for Lu Jiujia, all Mystic Valley disciples in their lifetime had never seen Sword Venerable Fudao act. They harbored doubts, suspecting that Sword Venerable Fudao might not even exist. After a long chat, Guan finally stood up and left, and the disciples dispersed. Watching Guan disappear into the forest, Jiang Shi turned his head and quickly went to Lu Jiujia's side, whispering, "Senior brother, where's master going so late? Why is he always going out?" He had been puzzled by this for 100 years and had long wanted to ask. Lu Jiujia glanced at him and said, "Mind less about where your master goes." Jiang Shi hastily apologized. Lu Jiujia paid him no more attention and walked towards his own house. Once seated cross-legged on his bed, he gazed out at the bright moon, a look of melancholy in his eyes. Lately, he had been increasingly feeling weak, a tiredness beyond words, always feeling that once he closed his eyes, his life would be over. He began to understand that the so-called imminent end could indeed be perceived. His days might be numbered, and he needed to think about how to settle his affairs. If he were to die, who should he leave the position of eldest disciple to, who could serve his senior brothers as well as he did? He immediately ruled out Jiang Shi. He wouldn't choose a disciple his senior brother disliked for his position. On the other hand, Guan arrived at the Hidden Spirit Palace and saw that the deep-sea dragon carp had finally escaped danger, hiding in a cave under the sea. After confirming it was safe, it fainted. "You escaped a calamity, let your final journey be easy," Guan murmured to himself, then flicked his hand, sending a spell through the sea in a way incomprehensible to mortal spirits, entering the body of the deep-sea dragon carp to help it recover from its injuries and regain its demonic power. Afterward, he began picking medicinal herbs. After picking the medicinal herbs, he didn't leave. Instead, he stayed in the Hidden Spirit Palace and read. The Hidden Spirit Palace housed a great collection of books, all of which were his prized possessions. When he wanted to be alone, he would come here. Chapter 388. The strongest immortal dynasty. The night deepened, and the Hidden Spirit Palace, located at the depths of the sea floor, fell into tranquility. Guan lay on a chair, holding a book in one hand, while occasionally the sound of the ocean's tides and the cries of mysterious demon beasts echoed in his ears, like a symphony that brought peace to his mind. Time rapidly slipped away in such an atmosphere. Guan set his book aside, stood up, stretched lazily, and looked outside the Hidden Spirit Palace, where he saw the deep-sea dragon carp again embarking on the journey to find the Hidden Spirit Palace. There should be no problem with the journey ahead, as there were no formidable demon creatures blocking the path. Guan watched for a while, then left the Hidden Spirit Palace and returned to the Supreme Sect. The case of Wu Ju was still the most prominent concern within the Supreme Sect, with many righteous hearts demanding that the sect thoroughly investigate the reasons behind the madness of those disciples, and if their claims were true, Wu Ju must be granted justice. How could other disciples not panic when even a talent like Wu Ju could be slandered, suppressed, or even potentially killed? This was happening right beside them. There were even disciples who publicly called out in the intersect city, seeking to rally the sense of justice in other disciples, holding the Righteousness and Demons written by Pan In, a book that documented the Sword Venerable Fudeo's efforts to quell internal strife within the Supreme Sect. With this book in hand, even the disciples from the law enforcement hall dared not apprehend him. While Guan used his divine thought to observe the disciples' public address, he walked into the Third Medicine Valley. Some disciples had already introduced the issue to the Medicine Valley, prompting other disciples to join in discussions. The storm was growing bigger. This pleased Guan. Perhaps the higher-ups were worried that this matter would bring unrest to the Supreme Sect, but Guan was not afraid. He had feelings for the Supreme Sect and did not wish to see it become the sect of a single family, especially since this family was a newcomer from overseas. Wasn't this like a dove taking over a magpie's nest? Now it remained to be seen how the Supreme Sect would confront the pressure from the disciples. Guan did not join in the discussions of the disciples and returned to his attic alone. On the other side, within a dimly lit hall, LV Badian, Jihan Tian, and 3 great cultivators sat around a long table looking very grim. These 3 great cultivators were from the venerable pavilion of the Supreme Sect, which towered above the Hall of Elders. Despite years of development and foreign forces diluting the power of various halls within the Supreme Sect, the venerable pavilion remained under the control of the original families, which was their bottom line. Gu Gua took a deep breath and said, "The situation has escalated beyond concealment, it's time to put pressure on the Xing family." The aged Ji Hengshi stroked his beard and said, "Indeed, pressure must be applied, but the question is how. Sheng Qianzong is already furious and even hopes that we defend the image of the Xing family." The venerable who replaced Zhou Yu, coming from the LV family and named LV Lai, had a gloomy face and remained silent. LV Badian glanced at LV Lai with a flicker of displeasure in his eyes. Jihan Tian, known for his explosive temper and inability to hold back, glared at the 3 venerables and said, "At this point we should stop passing the buck around. We are all in this together, and if the Supreme Sect does nothing, we will be the first to suffer. If we don't suppress the Sheng family now, other families will certainly trample over us." His attitude was starkly different from when he faced Guan, fearing at that time that Guan would be exposed to the Sheng family. If only Sword Venerable Fudao could take action, how wonderful that would be? LV Lai suddenly spoke up. LV Badian glared at him and said, "What, should we disturb him over such a trivial matter? Have you forgotten his current status? He is now the Holy Sword of the Holy Court. Even the colossal Star Sea congregations appear insignificant before him." LV Lai shook his head and remained silent. Gu Gua pondered, "Investigate the Sheng family thoroughly. This is a good opportunity. It's rare for the Sheng family to make a mistake, and we can use this to suppress the influence of other overseas families. Think carefully, how could those disciples be driven mad by the Sheng family? Even if it were true, the Sheng family would never let them out. The talent of Wu Ju is no small matter, and he rose from humble beginnings. Throughout history, where have there been so many strokes of luck? Anyone who rises from obscurity has surely the backing of a great power behind them." Jihan Tian looked at Gu Gua with brightened eyes and asked, "Do you mean that Wu Ju has the support of Sword Venerable Fudao behind him?" Gu Gua replied, "It's not impossible. Think about it, the Supreme Sect is not some geomantic treasure land. Who among the past geniuses wasn't related to him? He wouldn't care about the small affairs of the Supreme Sect, but he would definitely step in if it involved the overall spirit of the sect. This group of disciples who inexplicably went mad is the best proof." Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent. The shadows on their faces gradually dispersed. If they had the support of Sword Venerable Fudao, what was there to fear? Perhaps he is also watching our actions. If we, Gu Gua continued, leaving his sentence unfinished, but everyone understood his implication. Following his train of thought, the others were shocked and felt a chill run down their spines. Jihan Tian slammed the table and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's do it now. I'll take the lead." With that, he disappeared from the room in an instant. The rest looked at each other and Ji Hengshi gave a wry smile. Will his temperament ever change? Chains? Maybe in the next lifetime. I'm off as well. LV Badian laughed and stood up to leave, vanishing as well. The three venerable pavilion members did not linger long, vanishing from their seats simultaneously. An hour later, a piece of news shook the supreme sect. The venerable pavilion ordered a thorough investigation of the Sheng family and deployed a large number of disciples to surround the Sheng family's residence. As soon as this news came out, cheers erupted in the cities of the supreme sect. The truth had yet to be verified, but the Sheng family's reputation had already soured. This was because other disciples who had been oppressed by the Sheng family were also exerting their influence, spreading word of their high-handed behavior. In the evening, Guan sensed the breath of battle emanating from the main city of sect, but it quickly faded. The one who had made a move was the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. LV Badian personally went to invite the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who himself held the position of an elder and thus was not afraid of the Sheng family. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord had intervened, moved by what LV Badian had said, for LV Badian hinted that Sword Venerable Fudao was secretly observing this farce. Guan did not mind the Venerable Pavilion using his influence as leverage. After all, it was the truth. Moreover, without giving them some confidence to forcefully confront the Sheng family, it would have been difficult. What Guan wanted was their stance. That night was destined to be restless. When the sunlight of the following day streaked across the entire supreme sect, many legends had already spread among the populace. 2 days later, the supreme sect posted a declaration, revealing the cause and consequences of Wu Ju's case, clearing his name. It also informed the disciples that the Sheng family too was unaware of the truth, deeming it all a misunderstanding. Although many disciples were dissatisfied, wanting to directly topple the Sheng family, the supreme sect would not abandon a noble family over this affair, especially since the deceased was a genius of the Sheng family. Wu Ju came to find Guan as soon as he was released, expressing his gratitude. Me? I had nothing to do with it. I spoke up for you and ended up getting lectured by the sect leader and the vice-sect leader, said Guan, shaking his head while he poured Wu Ju some tea. Wu Ju showed a smile and said, "They're only scolding you because they're worried you might get into trouble. They're probably just trying to stabilize you first while they prepare the evidence." He felt that the frenzy among the disciples was stirred up by the likes of LV Badian and others, who dared not openly claim it was the intention of Sword Venerable Fudao. Faced with numerous speculations, they neither denied nor acknowledged. Guan huffed, "Who knows what they're thinking? But as long as you're cleared of the charges, I'm happy. We must drink joyously all day and night today, you can't run away." Wu Ju laughed, "With your cultivation level and mine, you think you can outdrink me?" After this ordeal, he had gained clarity about many people and events. He did not harbor resentment but swore to become stronger and to repay Guan. A noble family, huh? If that was the case, then I too must become a noble family. Holding his bowl of wine, Wu Ju thought to himself as he looked at Guan's smiling face. He also wanted to become Guan's support as a way to repay him. Guan didn't know what he was thinking, but regardless, it didn't matter to him. The issue with the Sheng family was in his eyes no issue at all. Helping Wu Ju had many methods. Choosing this way simply added a bit of fun and anticipation to life. Guan turned his gaze towards the window. A gale had begun to blow outside as if the world was on the brink of great upheaval. Compared to the grand trend of the world, the supreme sect's minor incidents were insignificant. The immortal dynasty was poised to make new moves. Lately, Guan had sensed the return of many existences above the immortal Dao fifth layer heaven to the great heavenly spirit land, all of them spirits from the immortal dynasty. Although the Holy Court had not welcomed a large influx of powerful individuals, they were clearly strengthening their positions in every domain. It seemed that the Magic Battle Conference had not brought long-term peace but had given the immortal dynasty greater hope. Beneath a night sky sprinkled with dazzling stars, atop a colossal palace with no ceiling, the Yangxian Emperor was meditating below a golden light sphere, eyes closed, hands continually casting spells. A figure appeared above the grand hall, the ancient immortal emperor. The ancient immortal emperor, frowning slightly, asked, "Do you truly intend to break through by force? With your talent you would surely surpass me. Why can't you be a bit more patient?" Without opening his eyes, the Yangxian emperor replied, "It's not that this emperor lacks patience, but Xingtian isn't giving this emperor a chance. If we let him succeed in his tribulation crossing, the immortal dynasty will no longer exist. His talent, as you know, is clear. The realm you could not traverse he will surely reach, it's just a matter of when." The ancient immortal emperor said, The reincarnation tribulation is not that simple. Do you want to gamble the fate of the immortal dynasty on his failure? Or bet that it will take him 1,000,000, 10,000,000 years? The ancient immortal emperor fell silent at Yang Xian Emperor's retort. Soon after, the Yang Xian Emperor opened his eyes and looked toward the distant cosmos, saying, "Moreover, the Yuanshu ancestor did not open the paths of reincarnation without merit. What comes next will be the most potent period in the history of the immortal dynasty. All those supreme beings will return to fight alongside this emperor." Excitement appeared on his face, unable to wait for a battle with the holy court. The ancient immortal emperor watched him and said, "Then how do you plan to break through? You don't think the holy court would be so arrogant as to allow you to break through, do you? If the saint ancestor does not make a move, I too must refrain, or else the situation will spin even further out of control." The Yang Xian Emperor shook his head and said, "You need not worry, for this emperor has his own plans. I would even hope for them to try to stop my tribulation crossing. It would give me a justified cause to gain the upper hand." Chapter 389. Do you know what my cultivation level is? As autumn gave way to winter, the snow gradually blanketed the vast Taizong continent. Guan, wearing a mask, sat on the eaves, gazing up at the sky while Sage Xianmiao in the courtyard below, engaged in alchemy and curiously watched Guan. The mountain god seemed engrossed in something, having been watching for quite some time. Sage Xianmiao silently thought, yearning for the perspective of the mountain god. The scenery before the mountain god's eyes surely transcended imagination. Could something be happening beyond the heavens? Sage Xianmiao guessed right. Indeed, something was happening outside the heaven, and it was an event of great importance to the world. Guan saw a host of immortal spirits arranging a grand formation in the cosmos. The scale was so immense that even the silhouettes of two divine thought true immortals could be discerned, sitting cross-legged above the formation, their auras completely unhidden. Someone was about to break through. With such an array, it seemed likely that a divine thought true immortal was attempting to advance to a free immortal. Guan could not calculate precisely who it was. The immortal dynasty was protected by chi fortune that obscured cause and effect. Of course, given time he could figure it out, yet to know or not held little significance because divine thought true immortals were scarce, and as for free immortals, currently, there was only one in each domain. There were only 2 acknowledged free immortals in the entire visible great heavenly spirit land. Guan stood up, looking down at Sage Xianmiao and said, "Great changes are coming to the world. Cultivate diligently and do not be lazy." Having said that, he vanished into thin air from the eaves. The world is about to change? Sage Xianmiao frowned. What kind of calamity would it take for the mountain god to speak of a great change? Elsewhere. In one step, Guan arrived inside the hidden spirit palace, his gaze directed outside the barrier, where the deep-sea dragon carp lingered nearby. After previously bumping into the barrier and confirming the location of the hidden spirit palace, it did not seem in a hurry. Instead, it idly circled the barrier's vicinity, making not a single sound. Guan stepped onto the open space in front of the hidden spirit palace gate, raising his right foot, and immediately after, the deep-sea dragon carp appeared right under his foot. The deep-sea dragon carp was stunned, its fish-eyed gaze widening. This time, it did not struggle but instead watched Guan calmly and steadily. "Do you have a death wish? Speak, steamed or grilled?" Guan asked expressionlessly, looking down at it. The fish eyes of the deep-sea dragon carp turned teary once again. None of the hardships and dangers it had encountered on its journey had humiliated it as much as being before Guan, where it had cried twice. Guan's heart remained unsoftened. After a moment's thought, the primordial divine eye appeared on his forehead, shooting out a beam of golden light into the body of the deep-sea dragon carp. The deep-sea dragon carp shivered as its body stiffened. After a few breaths, as if sensing something, it cautiously asked, "Are you an immortal?" It spoke with a human voice, sounding like a young boy full of childishness. Guan did not move his foot, asking, "Whether I am or not, what does it have to do with you? Immortal, will you take me in? I will submit to you as my master, just teach me divine skills and I will obey you forever." The deep-sea dragon carp pleaded with tears, its tone brimming with misery that would tug at one's heartstrings. "Why should I take you in? Please, I beg you, how did you hear of immortals' legends at the bottom of the sea? Since I was little, I've had many memories that are not my own, likely passed down by my ancestors. I have seen the descent of immortals and they look just like you, I am human and the human race exists in this world. No, you are different from the human race. You give me the same feeling as those immortals. Hearing this, Guan narrowed his eyes, directly employing the great imprisoned soul immortal technique to search through its memories. The eyes of the deep-sea dragon carp lost their luster, appearing as if dead, and it even began to blow bubbles from its mouth. After a long while, Guan withdrew his divine thought, his expression peculiar. There actually were immortals. In the memories of the deep-sea dragon carp, that was a very ancient time, and Guan could not determine how long ago it was through its memories because its bloodline memories were intermittent. The immortals in its memory were undoubtedly beings beyond the 9 heavens of immortal path. There were 5 in total, descending from the heavens, casting mysterious crystal stones into the Tsanghai. That was the only fragment, yet the vision was clear. It demonstrated that the ancestor of the deep-sea dragon carp cherished this memory deep in their bones, unwilling to forget. Guan recalculated, verifying that the deep-sea dragon carp indeed had no other significant karma, before he felt at ease. He gently kicked the deep-sea dragon carp, jolting it awake. Without Guan's suppression, the deep-sea dragon carp suddenly soared upward, floating midair. The deep-sea dragon carp looked at Guan timidly, very nervous. I can take you in, but are you sure you are willing to give up your freedom for eternity? Guan asked. The deep-sea dragon carp, overwhelmed with joy, eagerly nodded and said, I am willing. As long as I can cultivate with you, as long as I can become an immortal, I am willing. Become an immortal? You'll have to prove your worth first. Guan cast a disparaging glance at the deep-sea dragon carp, then began to introduce it to the situation at Hidden Spirit Palace. The deep-sea dragon carp listened intently, fearful of disappointing Guan. After finishing his instructions, Guan told it to stay put for the time being and that he would teach it cultivation technique later, then he went back to the Supreme Sect. The deep-sea dragon carp turned its head to look at Hidden Spirit Palace, its fish eyes shining brightly, filled with exuberant excitement. After decades of hardship, the sweet payoff had finally arrived. 13 years later. In the dead of night, Guan stood atop a peak at the edge of Mystic Valley, toying with the fate-determining pen in his hand while gazing at the night sky. The lord of the immortal dynasty Yangxian Emperor, was about to undergo tribulation. The cosmos had gathered tens of thousands of mighty immortal spirits. Even the weakest among them was of the wandering immortal realm, and that was not the entirety of the immortal dynasty's power. Merely witnessing it was enough to make anyone marvel at the dynasty's strength. Above the outer layers of light, cultivators of the great heavenly spirit land from various great sects stood, discussing the unparalleled might of the immortal dynasty. They knew the immortal dynasty was formidable, but only today did they truly understand the extent of its strength. Most pivotal was that the Holy Court showed no reaction, as if indifferent to the tribulation of the immortal dynasty lord. What kind of terrifying heavenly tribulation is this? Such a dreadful aura, the number of heaven and earth flying immortals of the immortal dynasty seems to surpass the combined forces here. What do you think allows the immortal dynasty to stand against the Holy Court? The immortal dynasty is quite ambitious. Why does it seem like the Holy Court is wary of them? The disciples from the various sects, including those from Mortal World Peak, discussed such matters and Guan listened in. The Holy Court was not wary of the immortal dynasty, they were clearly waiting for the right moment. Guan could sense that within one of the Holy Court cities, a vast number of divine immortals of wondrous dharma and carefree primordial immortals were gathering, evidently preparing for something. He had predicted a great battle where some of the cultivators from the layers above would fail to escape in time and be obliterated on the spot. This calamity would also impact the great heavenly spirit land, causing earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and other disasters across various domains. For many years to come, Taitsong continent would suffer its influence, and countless living beings would face challenging times. Guan had no intention of intervening. Such tribulation would not affect his Medicine Valley. As for the common folk, they would attribute these hard times to natural disasters, unaware of the high-level conflict. While the immortal cultivation world could understand what was happening, they too would be swept up in the turmoil of conflict. If the Holy Court's control was shaken, the world order would encounter an upheaval not seen in a million years. Yangxian Emperor. Interesting indeed, quite a remarkable figure. Guan mused to himself, envisioning Yangxian Emperor's imposing dominance in the years to come, casting a shadow of dark times over the Holy Court until the emergence of Xingtian. However, he could not predict where Xingtian would be. There were many like Ji Xiaoyu in this world, burdened with the karma of reincarnation, making it difficult to deduce past lives through such karma, thus challenging to discern which one might be the Saint Heaven reincarnation. Perhaps Xingtian wasn't even in the great heavenly spirit land. Just as Guan was contemplating the future, a set of footsteps approached from behind. The newcomer was Jiang Shi. He cautiously approached Guan, and seeing that his master's eyes were not closed, he mustered the courage to ask, "Master, you've been here for such a long time, is there anything you need? Let me prepare it for you." Guan, without looking at him, answered softly, "Then prepare some wine and dishes." Jiang Shi, elated upon hearing this, quickly bowed and turned to make the arrangements. Guan wasn't too repelled by Jiang Shi's eagerness. After all, the boy had performed well over the years, truly focusing on his practice. The lad had already reached the core formation realm, only one realm below him, the Valley Master. With his talent, becoming the disciple of a great cultivator in the unification realm would not be difficult. Before long, Jiang Shi returned with wine and dishes, along with a small table. Guan accepted the wine Jiang Shi poured and in a seemingly indifferent tone asked, "Jiang Shi, do you know what my cultivation level is?" Jiang Shi paused for a moment, deliberating, then answered, "The senior brothers mentioned that you had reached the nascent soul realm many years ago. Actually, I am a loose immortal," Guan suddenly declared, leaving Jiang Shi with widened eyes filled with disbelief. Under Jiang Shi's stunned gaze, Guan raised his hand and the clouds above swiftly churned, forming a majestic dragon coiling through the sky. After a few breaths, Guan withdrew his hand, and the spectacle in the night sky vanished, returning to its original state. Jiang Shi was dumbfounded, doubting what he had just seen. When Guan lifted his hand again, Jiang Shi felt the world spin. Upon opening his eyes once more, he trembled with fright. Guan had become gigantic like a mountain, and he realized he was standing in the palm of Guan's hand. At that moment, Jiang Shi suddenly understood how Sun Wukong felt in the palm of the Buddha. Guan looked down at him expressionlessly and asked, "Do you now regret staying in Mystic Valley?" "No one knows of my cultivation level. Those who did are no longer alive." Jiang Shi immediately knelt down, head bowed, not daring to look directly at Guan. Clenching his teeth, he declared, "No regrets. To be your disciple is the fortune of 3 lifetimes." His mind was in turmoil, and he had never anticipated Guan to be so formidable. All he could do was to desperately try to please Guan, and he was extremely fearful. After all, Guan had previously taken a dislike to him. Would he simply kill him now? He suddenly regretted coming up to the mountain to ingratiate himself with his master. But wait, if his master wanted to kill him, why go through such an elaborate display? As Jiang Shi pondered this, his uneasy heart slowly calmed down. An approving glint passed through the eyes of Guan observing him. Even though the lad had made mistakes, he was not unforgivable. Lu Jujia's time was drawing near, and it might well be time to cultivate him. The reason for Guan's change of heart toward Jiang Shi was the latter's unwavering dedication over decades to stay in Mystic Valley. He knew what Jiang Shi feared, but that was not important. What mattered was Jiang Shi's ability to remain seated in meditation, unlike Yang Jian, who sought to venture out upon gaining strength. Chapter 390, Displaying Divine Skills at Dawn. Guan emerged from the forest, followed by Jiang Shi, whose expression was somewhat bewildered. Lu Jiujia, who was organizing the disciples for training, turned his head and noticed Jiang Shi following Guan, which sparked surprise within him. This young man actually dares to seek out his senior brother? In his heart, Lu Jiujia lamented, seeing that Jiang Shi clearly looked defeated. Guan continued on, joining the ranks of the disciples in preparation for training. Lu Jiujia did not ask Jiang Shi for details but urged him to join the queue quickly as the training was about to start. An hour later, Guan left Mystic Valley, and only then did Lu Jiujia dare to pull Jiang Shi back to the house to ask about what had happened the night before. Under the control of Guan's divine thought, the disciples in the valley were unable to perceive the disturbances of the previous night and even failed to sense the approach of Guan and Jiang Shi's energies. Facing Lu Jujia's inquiry, Jiang Shi shook his head and said, "Senior brother, don't ask. Rest assured I am fine. I will devote myself to building up Mystic Valley and won't let you or master down." After hearing this, Lu Jiujia felt uneasy. Why did it seem that this young man had grown closer to his senior brother? Even closer than him. Lu Jiujia thought it over and figured, since he didn't have many years left to live, wasn't this situation what he had hoped for? He respected Guan and treated Jiang Shi like a son, naturally hoping for a closer relationship between the two. "Perform well, your master will take note," Lu Jiujia said solemnly as he patted Jiang Shi on the shoulder. Jiang Shi nodded, his eyes blazing with a fire named combativeness. After the summer had passed, the Yangxian Emperor officially began his tribulation crossing. Guan stayed in the attic of the Third Medicine Valley, beginning to watch the divine thought true immortal's tribulation crossing. He wanted to see if the heavenly tribulation of the Yangxian Emperor could match his own. As soon as the heavenly tribulation began, he was disappointed. It seemed not very strong. As a divine thought true immortal realm being, he could have easily crossed it. While he was disappointed, the heaven and earth flying immortals in the exterior layers of sky shuddered with fear. Even from a great distance, they could feel the terror of the heavenly tribulation. What kind of heavenly tribulation is this? So far away and yet the pressure is still so terrifying? Which level of the immortal path's heavenly tribulation could this be? All I know is that from the 5th to the 6th level, the heavenly tribulation is nowhere near as frightening, and this is just the beginning. Could this tribulation affect the great heavenly spirit land? The immortal dynasty is truly formidable. The pressure we feel is just the residual effect. Look at their formations, how profound. The heaven and earth flying immortals discussed among themselves. Then, the carefree primordial immortal and the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma began to arrive. As time passed, the heavenly tribulation of the Yangxian Emperor grew increasingly terrifying. From the beginning of the heavenly tribulation, Guan could foresee the result. Even at its strongest, the tribulation could not shake his physique from when he was in the divine thought true immortal realm. If he were to undergo the Yangxian Emperor's heavenly tribulation, he would surely succeed on his first try. This heavenly tribulation would last a total of 7 days. The next day the sky emitted a red glow, akin to a burning cloud. The cultivators of the supreme sect merely thought it beautiful without giving it much thought. The same was true for 90% of the beings under the sky. On the 3rd day the temperature of heaven and earth suddenly rose, and the spiritual energy became violent, forcing many cultivators who were in seclusion to emerge, with some even being invaded by inner demons. On the 4th day, earthquakes and tsunamis began to occur all around the world, which the supreme sect couldn't ignore. On the 5th day the Holy Court took action. Guan saw a multitude of Holy Court powerhouses shot towards the cosmos like a rain of arrows. Their mana converged together, forming a formidable force that struck the great immortal dynasty's formation with an unstoppable momentum. The tremendous aftermath shattered many stars and meteorites in the cosmos, and then surged towards the great heavenly spirit land. The scenario Guan had deduced occurred. Some heaven and earth flying immortals turned to ash on the spot, and the entire great heavenly spirit land was shaken. The great immortal dynasty's formation was broken in an instant. However, dazzling flames burst forth from Yangxian Emperor's body, brighter and more massive than even the 7 outer days, radiating endless scorching heat. Yangxian Emperor raised his hand and astonishingly repelled tens of thousands of Holy Court powerhouses with a single move, including 5 divine thought true immortals. Not only that, Guan saw divine spirits with powerful auras flying out from the reincarnation vortex, all of whom were divine thought true immortals and Tao void mysterious immortals. The origins of these divine spirits were extremely bizarre, untraceable, almost as if they weren't living spirits but came from the 9 netherworld. They did not go to aid Yangxian Emperor but instead headed toward the Holy Dynasty. A world-shaking war thus erupted. In the ensuing time, Guan saw divine thought true immortals battling in the cosmos, Tao void mysterious immortals fighting within the Tao realm, and divine immortals of wondrous Dharma and carefree primordial immortals dueling in states unobservable by ordinary beings. The holy gods joined the fight. All the holy gods of the Holy Court were divine thought true immortals. Each of their arrivals resembled immortals descending to the mortal world, majestic and awe-inspiring. Guan was indeed riveted by what he saw, but of course he didn't forget his own identity, and he would also pretend to be worried when around others. On the 7th day Yangxian Emperor had advanced to the free immortal realm in full splendor. A violent storm approached. Under the pavilion, Ji Xiaoyu looked up at the rolling thunderclouds, her brow tightly furrowed. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor suddenly appeared beside her, sighing, "This is the 6 realms' destiny ultimate void tribulation. This Yangxian Emperor is truly a rare genius in history, not inferior to Xingtian. Having 2 prodigies from the same era in a single great heaven and earth is terrifying. It's fortunate that they are adversaries." Upstairs, Guan heard this and his expression turned odd. The Six Realms Destiny Ultimate Void Tribulation? When he had broken through to the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal Realm previously, his heavenly tribulation was called the Six Realms Destiny Ultimate Void Tribulation, 3 realms more than what Yangxian Emperor is facing now. Did this represent a higher level of difficulty? Ji Xiaoyu spoke. Indeed, if there were stronger beings in the great heavenly spirit land to guide them to unite, then this land could soar. Sadly, there are no such supreme beings here, destined to have only one prodigy survive. From what we see now, I believe Xingtian will have the last laugh. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor showed a smile, saying, I, on the other hand, think Yangxian Emperor has more hope. The Holy Court entered the reincarnation tribulation later than your Majesty, and by the time Yangxian Emperor unifies the great heavenly spirit land, he might not be able to escape from his tribulation. After hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu did not continue the conversation, her gaze firmly fixed on the sky. With a loud bang, a bolt of thunder appeared in the sky, resembling a giant dragon, spectacular to behold. I, Yangxian Emperor, ruler of the Immortal Dynasty, proclaim my ascension to the 9 heavens of Immortal Path. How dare the Holy Court obstruct my tribulation crossing? From this day forth, the Immortal Dynasty declares total war on the Holy Court. In this war, only one shall remain. The voice of Yangxian Emperor resounded, his tone mixed with towering rage, and the most profound part was that only beings of the Immortal Path realm could hear it, inaudible to mortal spirits. Guan couldn't help but admire. This guy's acting was also very strong. Clearly, he had been deliberately waiting for the Holy Court to make a move. The Holy Court had no choice but to act, unable to watch the birth of a free immortal in the Immortal Dynasty. Their failure to act this time meant that the Holy Court was defeated by the Immortal Dynasty twice. Guan was full of anticipation for the future. As the great chaos commenced worldwide, continuously more suicidal attackers would invade the Taizong continent, and he hadn't taken action in a long while, eager to display his divine skills. Chapter 391 Acceptance. After the Yangxian Emperor's furious proclamation resonated throughout the world, the epic of great strife was officially unveiled. The successful breakthrough of the Yangxian Emperor led to his arrival at Holy Court, followed closely by other powerhouses of the Immortal Dynasty, who launched an unprecedented offensive against the Holy Court. However, with its robust Qi fortune, Holy Court managed to form a formation out of Qi fortune, blocking the offensive of the Free Immortals, which amazed Guan greatly. The way of Qi fortune was extremely versatile, no less than the way of cause and effect. To be precise, each of the 3,000 great Tao had its unique excellence, without an absolute strength or weakness, depending on the practitioner's achievement in their respective Tao. Ultimately, Holy Court withstood the Yangxian Emperor's assault, forcing him to retreat and return to the Immortal Dynasty to begin a seclusion. Although Holy Court survived, this battle came with severe losses, causing powers scattered across the world to start contracting. When sects throughout the world saw that Holy Court was not as invincible as imagined, many began to stir. Who didn't want to become the Holy Court? They were only submitting to the overwhelming might of Holy Court, not genuinely loyal from the heart. In the coming autumn, the entire great heavenly spirit land plunged into turbulence. In the late autumn, Guan, accompanied by an ex-in, arrived at Mortal World Peak, quickly sensing the tense atmosphere enveloping the peak. The world was in chaos, with sects and dynasties watching. Choosing sides was necessary even without ambition. This was an unprecedented major upheaval in millions of years, making all forces quite cautious. After picking medicinal herbs on Dingtian Peak, Zhu Xinglan found Guan and informed him that the main peak had summoned him to attend a peak master meeting. Guan did not refuse and set off. All divine peak masters were present, and upon Guan's arrival, he received goodwill from many peak masters. After all, in their eyes, Guan was a being that even surpassed the carefree primordial immortal, so naturally they wanted to forge an affiliation. Once all divine peak lords were assembled, Lord Yongyin began to elaborate on the situation of Mortal World Peak, with Holy Court hoping for their support to jointly attack the territories affiliated with the Immortal Dynasty. The Immortal Dynasty pressed their victory and rapidly expanded after suppressing Holy Court, showing a ferocious momentum of swallowing the celestial sphere. Now Lord Yongyin wanted to discuss whether to support Holy Court, and if so, how. Guan did not participate in the discussion, merely listening quietly. The vast majority of peak masters believed they should not rashly support Holy Court, their perception shaken by the formidable power of the immortal dynasty, especially the Yangxian emperor, who demonstrated the world's top prowess amidst the mysterious disappearance of Shengtian. How dare they support Holy Court when the world's foremost stands with the immortal dynasty? Guan did not look down on them. In fact, their conjecture was correct. Without Shengtian, it was impossible for the two free immortals of the immortal dynasty to be defeated. The peak master meeting lasted an ancient hour, and in the end they decided to agree to Holy Court's request, but to discuss later when to take action. Guan returned to Dingtian Peak and guided an Xin in her cultivation. Only when evening fell did the two return to the supreme sect. Walking in the woods outside Mystic Valley, Guan observed Zhu Shi while moving forward. "Master, who do you think will have the last laugh between the immortal dynasty and Holy Court?" An Xin excitedly asked, following closely by Guan's side. She wasn't afraid of a major conflict between the two great powers. She believed her master could protect her. "It's hard to say, but one thing is certain, this calamity will last a long time." Guan responded casually, his tone calm as if he placed no importance on the matter. An Xin then asked how powerful the Yangxian emperor truly was, having heard many disciples of Mortal World Peak discussing him today, calling him the strongest of this era, the pinnacle of the immortal path. Very powerful, very powerful. Even with Hauer's talent, reaching that level would need hundreds of thousands of years. Guan's response astounded an Xin. Hundreds of thousands of years. After the shock, an Xin fell into boundless speculation. Would she still be alive after hundreds of thousands of years? Her gaze involuntarily turned towards her master. For her master to mention hundreds of thousands of years so casually, to him, would hundreds of thousands of years be like 10 years or even 1 year to ordinary people? Anyway, she felt that no matter how strong the Yangxian emperor was, he couldn't be as formidable as her master. Guan didn't know what she was thinking, but when he saw Zhu Shi pretending innocence after stealing medicinal herbs and sobbing in front of her master, he almost laughed. Given time, the Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body would surely become a supreme warrior of the world, perhaps even surpassing the Yangxian emperor. Unfortunately, she was born too late and caught in such turbulent times, truly bad luck. Wait, could it be? Born to meet the calamity? Guan showed a look of interest and began to deduce Zhu Zai's fate. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan Boda's fate was hard to predict, but as a Taoist hidden immortal, Guan could deduce some traces of cause and effect. Lu Jiujiao laughed. "Everyone must die eventually, it's inevitable." "True, let's talk about the Great Sun Divine Sect instead, who knows when they might attack." "Really? The Broken Sea domain is under the protection of the Holy Court. Could the Great Sun Divine Sect really be stronger than the Great Cold Demon Sect of yore?" Lu Jiujiao frowned. Speaking of the Great Sun Divine Sect, which had been a hot topic recently, even the realm of heaven and earth flying immortal had strongly entered into the consciousness of Supreme Sect's disciples. Various rumors all pointed to one thing: the Broken Sea domain was about to face an unprecedented threat, and the Taizong dynasty situated there would find it hard to escape unscathed. Guan smiled. "How about we make a bet? Guess whether the Great Sun Divine Sect can defeat Sword Venerable Fudao?" Upon hearing this, Lu Jiujia instantly raised his eyebrows. "I bet they are no match for Sword Venerable Fudao." Guan's smile stiffened. "No, let's draw lots, decide the order of choice." "I want." "You itching for a spanking? Don't think just because you're old, senior brother won't dare to thrash you." "Oh come on, the disciples are watching, what kind of example would that set? The prestige of the first disciple must be maintained, don't make it difficult for the next generation's first disciple." The two began to bicker, laughter echoing endlessly. Mountains ranged in succession, and in one forested mountain, numerous pavilions nestled. A young man knelt in the courtyard, his face stubborn, his gaze fixed on the main gate. "No matter how long you kneel, I will not hand over your ancestors' brocade bag to you," a woman's voice came from the gate. "Why not?" The young man gritted his teeth. "My father and my grandfather's deep-seated vendetta, are you really going to ignore it? They are also your descendants. Exactly for that reason I cannot let you continue to risk your life. What's wrong with being immortal? Once you step into the world of immortal cultivation, no one ends well. Being immortal, when facing power, when encountering cultivators, we are just meat on the chopping block at the mercy of others." The young man's voice nearly broke at the end. The mysterious woman inside the gate fell silent. After a long while, the mysterious woman spoke softly. The bloodline of the Yin family is deeply cursed. None of your ancestors had a good ending, not even my son who did not live past 30. The deeper you cultivate, the worse the outcome, yet still, you persist? Perhaps the brocade bag left by our ancestor is meant to resolve this issue. It's useless. I don't believe it. Just give it to me, let me decide for myself, someone has to try. The young man said sternly, his body trembling because he had been kneeling for too long. Emotions stirred, his chi blood was somewhat deficient. Clang, the gate suddenly opened, a brocade bag flew out, landing in front of the young man. Overjoyed, the young man immediately picked up the brocade bag, tore it open, and took out a piece of paper, tremblingly examining it. The paper bore 2 large characters. Resign. The young man felt as if struck by lightning, his eyes widened and he was dumbstruck. Why? The young man murmured to himself, his hands involuntarily clenched into fists, and the paper was crumpled with them. His fingernails dug into his own flesh, blood seeping out, staining the paper in his hands. Chapter 392 The Sense of Intimacy of an Yuan. Why resign oneself to fate? Why? The youth trembled all over, his eyes filled with despair. Dark clouds blanketed the sky, as if destiny obscured the sunshine of his life, leaving no sight of hope. The mysterious woman in the building did not answer, nor did she offer any comfort. She had once felt the same despair when she came across those 2 characters. She did not resent that man either. After all, he warned her before he left. Yet, she couldn't withstand her family's persuasion and got caught up in the disputes, leading to her descendants having to hide in the mountains, humbly lamenting the unfairness of fate. Just then, the youth suddenly felt a sharp pain in his palm, which frightened him into reflexively letting go, throwing the crumpled paper away. He instinctively looked at his palm and saw many blood-red lines appear, quite ghastly. He seemed to realize something, raised his head, and fixed his gaze on the blood-stained paper ball before scrambling over to it. He picked up the paper, unfolded it, and to his surprise found that the words "resigned to fate" had disappeared, replaced by 3 large characters. Supreme Sect. Supreme Sect, what does this mean? The youth murmured, frowning. He had certainly heard of the Supreme Sect, the legendary #1 sect above all dynasties. With his talent, how difficult it would be to enter the Supreme Sect. Suddenly, a figure appeared beside him. A woman wearing a black Taoist robe with white hair, yet a face that was young and comely. She was none other than the Princess of Tianwei, Si Yenner, who had once been engaged to An Hao. She snatched the paper from the youth's hand and scrutinized the characters. Her brows furrowed tightly, her eyes filled with complex emotions. Weren't you the one who told me not to try to ingratiate myself with that elder? Why then leave a secret message for your descendants to go to the Supreme Sect? Did you know this day would come, or were you worried about the safety of your progeny? Si Yenner mumbled to herself, her tone complex. A mix of surprise, reluctance, anger, and resentment. The youth stood up, his legs weak. It took him a while to steady his stance. Grandmother, what does the ancestor mean? That I should go to the Supreme Sect? He asked nervously, his eyes full of anticipation. Si Yenner took a deep breath and said, yes, go to the Supreme Sect. The youth, overjoyed, turned to leave immediately. Wait, do you even know where the Supreme Sect is located? How far away it is? Si Yenner suddenly called out to him. The youth turned his head and said, the Supreme Sect is so famous, I should be able to find out by asking around. With your pace it will take 10 years to get there, by which time you might already be dead. Si Yenner stared at him, saying emotionlessly. Upon hearing this, the youth's face turned pale. Si Yenner turned her back and walked towards the attic, leaving behind a sentence, just wait, it'll take you to the Supreme Sect. The youth, with a look of delight, quickly knelt to thank Si Yenner. Meanwhile, An Hao was cultivating in the immortal dynasty, unaware of what his descendants were going through. He meditated on a cliff, facing a vast and magnificent waterfall, its thunderous roar deafening. Below was a lake as vast as the ocean, covered with a mist that made the place seem like a paradise on earth. A figure appeared behind An Hao, a woman in a white dress, gazing at him with eyes full of admiration. An Hao, the immortal dynasty has issued a Chi Fortune bounty, why don't you take part? With the support of the dynasty's Chi Fortune, your cultivation level will grow faster, much better than painstakingly meditating, said the woman in the white dress, her voice gentle and tender. An Hao, with his back to her, did not open his eyes, replying, To seek the path of immortality solely through chi fortune might not be right. I believe more in the mana that I cultivate myself. The woman in the white dress smiled and said, "That's true. With your extraordinary talent, you can reach the pinnacle of the immortal path on your own. It's just a matter of time." And Hao did not respond. The only sound was the clamor of the waterfall striking the lake's surface. The woman in the white dress continued to watch Hao, not finding it dull. After a long while, "Please return, fairy. Perhaps I misunderstood your intentions. In any case, I will never remarry in this lifetime. I once had a wife, but in pursuit of immortal cultivation, I've cut off our relationship, and I do not wish to become involved with another woman in more than just friendship." And Hao finally spoke, his tone calm but resolute. Upon hearing this, the woman's face subtly changed. She wanted to say something but couldn't as she looked at Hao's back. She watched his silhouette for a while, eventually turning to leave. Only after she had gone did Hao open his eyes, a look of melancholy in his gaze. "So many years have passed, are you still well?" And Hao murmured to himself. An image of a bright and playful girl appeared before him, her smile and glance, even after hundreds of years, unforgettable to him. A year later, near the Supreme Sect in the forests, Si Yener and the young man were on their way, with the young man carrying a large bundle that bent his back. He looked at his grandmother walking ahead and couldn't help asking, "Grandmother, why not teach me to cultivate instead? Otherwise I truly might die of exhaustion." When the grandmother took out a flying artifact, he was stunned, never imagining she was so powerful. He had also questioned his grandmother why she hadn't stepped in to save his grandfather, his father, to which Si Yener replied that she was too far away to intervene in time. Regarding why she didn't seek revenge, it was for his sake too. The enemy was a powerful family with an immortal in their ranks, certainly not someone she could contend with. Learning the reasons, the youth's desire to cultivate and become an immortal grew stronger. He must become powerful. "We're almost there. What need is there to cultivate now?" Si Yener's voice came from ahead. Upon hearing this, the youth was instantly overjoyed and quickly hastened his pace. He began to inquire about his ancestors' relationship with the Supreme Sect. This time Si Yener did not hide the truth. "Your ancestor, named Hao, was the foremost talent in the world, and now he is venturing in an even more distant realm. He is the pride of the Supreme Sect." As Si Yener spoke, a wistful expression crossed her face. She remembered Hao's spirited visage. She harbored no resentment for Hao's decision. After all, it was her own heart that had stirred first, not to mention that before leaving, Hao had left behind several treasures. It was for this reason that the Si family, following their downfall, could survive with her descendants. When the youth heard the name Hao, it seemed somewhat familiar. But as he listened to his grandmother praising him, the youth did not feel excited. Instead, his expression grew even more somber. The stronger Hao was, the more the youth despised him. What of it if he was the world's most talented? In his eyes, he was just a negligent forebear, probably not all that impressive. The two continued their conversation as they moved forward, with most of the speaking done by Si Yener, while the youth said very little. As they walked, figures appeared in front of them. The first to enter their sight was a man riding a demon bull, followed by a woman. Si Yener had long since sensed their presence, with one of them being a nascent soul realm cultivator, undoubtedly a disciple of the Supreme Sect. Therefore she wanted to approach these two to lead them into the Supreme Sect. She quickened her pace, with the youth following closely behind, his gaze fixed on the blood prison great saint. What a magnificent bull! Guan patted the head of the blood prison great saint, signaling it to stop. An Xen turned her head to look and quickly set her sights on the youth, her brows furrowing soon after. "En Yuan, Energy Cultivation Realm, Level 117/25/5000. Guan looked at the youth's lifespan without a change in expression, but internally he felt puzzled. Why was his lifespan so short? He came here with an Xan because he had calculated the arrival of Si Yener and the other person. He also predicted the plight of Hao's descendants, but upon truly encountering Yuan, he was still surprised. His lifespan was unreasonably short, especially considering that there was no sign of illness. Si Yener approached an Xen and with a salute of her hand said, "My name is Si Yener, from the former land of Tianwei. May I ask if you two are disciples of the Supreme Sect? You're called Si Yener?" And Xin's eyes widened in shock as she asked. Si Yener inquired with suspicion, "Have you heard of my name, miss?" "Of course I've heard. My senior brother mentioned you to me." "Your brother is Si Yener too became excited hearing In Hao mention his sister. An Xian did not conceal her identity, and upon revealing it, the two women embraced each other as if reuniting after a long parting. And Yuan stared blankly at An Xian, not expecting this woman with the grace of an immortal to be his ancestor's junior sister. So young she looked about his age. Who is this? Si Yener turned her attention to Guan, asking with curiosity. An Xian hastily introduced, "This is my master, although not the same as the one shared with my senior brother. He is my second master." Si Yener suddenly understood. She of course knew who In Hao's master was, the renowned sword venerable Fu Dao. This fact she had not mentioned to An Yuan. Guan smiled and asked, "You aren't here looking for In Hao, are you? He has already joined the immortal dynasty, and even a Mahayana cultivator would need decades, even 100 years to reach the immortal dynasty from the ends of the earth." The immortal dynasty. Si Yener immediately lapsed into a daze. She had naturally heard this name as the Yuanshu ancestor who opened reincarnation came from the immortal dynasty. Has he already reached such a state? Si Yener suddenly felt fortunate. Fortune that she had not been overbearing in the past. Had she clung to him in the Taizong continent, would In Hao have achieved such greatness? Come back to the valley with us first, we can talk more after a few days' rest. Guan's words matched Si Yener's intentions. She swiftly bowed in thanks and gestured for An Yuan to speak. And Yuan, just coming to his senses, quickly bowed in salute. The group headed towards Mystic Valley. An Xian and Si Yener walked arm in arm at the front, while An Yuan cautiously followed behind the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint turned its head to glance at An Yuan, a strange look in its eyes. An Yuan felt uneasy all over, watched by the demon. Could it be wanting to eat him? He indeed looks quite a bit like An Hao. It's just that the talent is far inferior. I didn't expect the offspring of such a genius to be so disappointing, the Blood Prison Great Saint remarked. Upon hearing this, an irate An Yuan glared, but he dared not retort. Guan slapped the Blood Prison Great Saint on the back and said crossly, "Why speak so of the younger generation? Do you believe I could make you worse off than him?" The Blood Prison Great Saint, shivering all over, did not dare to speak further. And Yuan curiously looked at Guan, feeling a newfound fondness for him. For some reason, from that first glimpse of Guan, he felt a great liking for him, sensing that his smile was so gentle, bringing him a feeling of kinship. Guan waved An Yuan over, beckoning him to stand beside the Blood Prison Great Saint. Guan did not stop them, hoping they could redeem each other. Until one afternoon at the end of autumn. "I've decided." And Yuan suddenly stood up, his face firm as he looked towards the distant sky. Sitting by his side, Jiang Shi looked at him in surprise, not knowing why the boy was so agitated. The master and disciple were on a mountaintop, overlooking the magnificent landscape afar. And Yuan, with great ambition, shouted loudly, "I want to surpass An Hao. From now on, I'm not called An Yuan. My name is An Xingtian." Boom! Thunder rumbled in the distant clouds as if the heavens were responding to him. Jiang Shi looked at An Xingtian, feeling a shiver in his spirit from an unprecedented aura radiating from him. He had never met An Hao but had heard of his legend. That was a cultivator said to have the highest talent. This boy's ambition. A smile appeared on Jiang Shi's face. He was about to speak when a loud voice echoed between heaven and earth. "The strongest man in the Broken Sea domain, Holy Sword of the Holy Court, show yourself. If you do not appear, I will suppress all living beings in Broken Sea domain with one palm." The voice was immensely domineering and filled with oppression, startling An Xingtian and Jiang Shi as they looked up, both opening their mouths in disbelief. Above, the dark clouds churned, and an immensely majestic figure appeared on the horizon, full body obscured, only a golden breastplate visible, which was larger than any mountain between heaven and earth. It was as if a demon god from beyond the world was peering at the mortal spirits within. The sense of oppression chilled An Xingtian and Jiang Shi down to their spines. Not just them, the entire Taizong continent, the entire Broken Sea domain, all living beings who saw that majestic figure felt fear. What kind of existence was this? Could it be an immortal? At the third Medicine Valley, Guan walked downstairs, and Ji Xiaoyu also stepped outside, looking at the figure on the horizon, her brows furrowed. "Where are you going?" Ji Xiaoyu called out to Guan, "I'm going to see Mystic Valley, worried about the disciples." Guan replied over his shoulder, then quickly walked toward the transmission array platform. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.